Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 51 of the Former Action Guys podcast, and I'm your host, Justin Kramer. And this week I have HM2 Tyler Fogg on, along with our friend Tracy Offit. All three of us were together at first ANGLICO. He was on a different kind of deployment cycle than me and got there before me, so him and Tracy have some good stories about some other stuff that they did at ANGLICO that I wasn't aware of and stuff like that. He's also a SERE school instructor. He just finished up being a SERE school instructor not too long ago. So he talks about that some, and we go over that. He talks about going through LA trauma, going through the LA hospital and working in their trauma center as part of his training, and some of the things he did as a 19-year-old, massaging hearts, live hearts, and working with cadavers and real people, stitching up stab wounds and stuff. It's a really interesting talk with someone that's done some pretty interesting stuff for Navy Corpsman, and kind of like I think we discussed it a little bit, shows the different things that you could do while you're in the Marine Corps. In the Navy in his case. Another thing he did was he was out working with the Border Patrol doing, emplacing sensors and stuff like that and doing stuff. So really interesting conversation. We go over all those things along with some politics. We get into a little bit of stuff. So there is that. And then at the end, we kind of follow up or end up with the SERE school information. And then I can't remember exactly what we talked about at the end, but, it was a really good conversation. So make sure to check that out. And then this weekend, I'm going to be recording with Alex Aninos that was on episode 40. I'm going to confirm it with him. That's how you say it. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, go back to episode 40. He'll be on this weekend. So shoot me any messages over if you have any questions for him or anything like that. And then outside of that, make sure to as always, check out my website, jkramergraphics.com. Instagram's at jkramergraphics and Former Action Guys. I got those two Instagrams. And then hit me up on Twitter, number 4 MER Action Guys. So there we go. Have a good one. But we're on.
Okay.
We are recording. Everything is going. So today on the podcast we have Doc Fogg, who was with us at first ANGLICO. Me and Tracy and obviously a bunch of other people. I'm going to adjust this camera.
Yeah, fair bear.
Yeah, man. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having
Tracy set this up. So thanks for setting it up and everything
absolutely.
like that.
I wanted to get the other side of the story.
Yeah.
My perspective was, one thing, and then I was like, I got to hear what it's like to be on the other side.
So first, the funny thing, I got a few messages from people that weren't very happy when we were like, hey, let's stop and take a piss break, and then we just never came back. That's when the episode ended. People were like, wait, is there a second episode? And I'm like, no, there's not. They're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess I was a little abrupt. I should have put something in there saying that was the actual end of the episode. However, we did go over 3 hours on that one, so.
Yeah, and we ate dinner beforehand, which was another 45 minutes of us talking. So we ate up a lot of good material just during dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I stayed kind of quiet. But no, it's funny. That's why I reached out to this gent here, and I was like, some of the Marines had told me about that story, and I laughed when I heard it, and I had to go listen to it. And
Do you want, for maybe someone who hasn't heard it yet, you want to explain what he's talking about? You want to tell your side again, and then you go on your side?
First,
I want to hear your side first.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
Do you want me to start from the power outage to everything, or just start from your side and then go to
what? I don't remember the power outage.
So there was the barracks had a power outage, so a lot of the Marines they cut field days short, and a lot of the Marines went out for drinks, and I'm not a big drinker. It's either all or nothing. I don't just kind of go. So I was like, hey, I'll drive for you guys.
Oh, responsible.
Yeah, actually, that's what kind of kept me in the mercy of the court from what I remember with you is, so what happened was a Thirsty Thursday, and for whatever reason, the base was having a weird power outage thing. And so a lot of the Marines went out drinking. Well, my wife was the corporal that you caught in my room. She's my wife now. So
that's pretty funny.
That even makes the story better.
It does. Yeah. And so she actually, I had her you got to listen to this. And she just laughed. She's like, I'm kind of upset he didn't go back to telling his side of the story. And so she was just getting back from Kansas, where she's from. And so we were hanging out. And I already knew I was going to be driving. So I was expecting 2 o'clock in the morning, I was going to get a phone call and to go be a taxi. And so we were hanging out. We went and watched a movie and had dinner and stuff. And we're killing time. And so it was about 11 o'clock, and I was like, here, I'll drive you back to your room. And so when we're halfway back on base, and all of a sudden the guys call, like, hey, we're having power outages in San Clemente. The bars are going to close early. And so I was like, oh, God. And so I talked to her. I was like, hey, do you want to go with me? And then it'll actually help the Marines out. I'll bring their car back.
And
you bring my car back.
Yeah.
And we'll be golden. And so she's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so she didn't have to go back from vacation till a couple days or a day or so. And so she went. And so I'm getting suited up, getting ready to go to this place in San Clemente to pick these boys up. And then they call me back, like, hey, the power's back on. They're gonna let us continue
We're
drinking.
back on.
So they're like, woo!
Yeah,
Party back
continues. But you're already at the barracks.
So I'm already at the ANGLICO barracks. So I was
Yeah.
like, well, I guess we'll just sit here because it's easy access to the 5. And so we're just like hanging out. And then they called me like an hour later. So at this point, it's about 12:30. They're like, hey, the power's out again. So they're going to hold off for 30 minutes. And then if it doesn't come back on, they're going to close up shop. So I was like, all right, cool. So I just kind of hung out. They never called. So it's about an hour and a half now. So about 1:30, they call. They're like, yeah, power's out. They're going to close it down 30 minutes early. So it's about 1:30 in the morning or so. I can't remember what time the bars closed, but it's about that time frame because I didn't. So we went out, and she just took my car back, and she drove it straight back to the ANGLICO barracks. I gave her my room key. I said, Sergeant Major won't mind. I'm just kidding.
Actually, you were right.
And I'm just kidding. I didn't say that part. But
there's another one in front. Thanks.
Gotcha.
So what they didn't tell me was when I got there were Marines that weren't just ANGLICO Marines. So when I was driving back, there was guys that had to go to Mateo, and guys that had to go to Horno, and then guys that went to ANGLICO. And so I didn't get back until like 4:30 in the morning, and we had to meet at the trailers at like I can't remember 6:30. So I was like, I'm looking at 2 hours of sleep, and then I had to drive her back, and we're like, well, just stay here. And so she stayed there, and then I went off at 6 to go meet at the trailers, and so we're all doing our thing, and all of a sudden, our staff sergeant got called. And it's like, hey, you need to go meet Sergeant Major and the CO. And instantly, I knew what happened. I'm like, fuck. And everybody's like, wonder what that's about. And I was like, I know. They're like, and the group of guys that was with Alpha at the time were just a solid group of guys like, Doc, you idiot. What'd you do? And I was like, my girlfriend's in the room. And they just bust out laughing, right? And I'm just like, they're scared to death because I know Sergeant Major's going to find her. And so finally they called me up there, and I'm just thinking like I am super screwed. So at that point I was just like, well, there's nothing I can do. So then here comes the questions like the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why. And at that point I'm just owning it. I was like, no excuse, no excuse, no excuse. And then so Sergeant Major's like, just go down to the CP, sit by my office, and don't move. I'll be there. And so at that point, I texted HM1. I know you guys don't like to use names, but HM1 and
I don't care. I mean, I don't like to use names if we're talking negatively about somebody necessarily if they don't have a chance to defend themselves.
Oh no, he actually went in, talked to Sergeant Major. Is H1 Flores.
Okay.
He went in, and I think he dressed up in his peanut butters on purpose, his navy khakis, because
it's a serious occasion.
It was a serious occasion. That's right. He wanted to flaunt it all out. I'm just kidding.
Somebody had a girlfriend in their room.
He wasn't that type of guy. He was very humble. So I messaged him. I was like, hey, H1, I messed up. He's like, where are you at? And I was like, waiting to go talk to Sergeant Major. So he came down, talked to Sergeant Major, and left. And he just told me, he's like, hey, when you're done, come back to the clinic. And so I was like, okay. And so I finally go talk to Sergeant Major, and here I am, no excuse, it's my fault. And then finally he was like, hey, idiot, I know you're not this stupid. What happened? So I told him the story, and he's like, so you did a few right things, but you made a wrong decision, right? I was like, it's my fault still. He's like, hey, cool, whatever, I get it. He's like, well, right now you're chopped to the MEU. So technically you don't belong to me, And what I'm going to try to do is keep it from the mule. So go back to the clinic and yeah, he's like, and so I went back to the clinic and a few weeks passed and then one of the captains from Salt Alpha came up and gave me a nip lock for having a girl in my room. Yeah. I got a non-punitive letter of caution, which the first sentence, Captain Kim was a great captain once again. He was one, sat down, discussed everything that it was about.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, so what this is it's a letter of caution. It's not going your record, but it's just kind of saying like, hey, you're an idiot. Don't do it again.
Yeah, that's the smack on the wrist and justification for further paperwork.
So I was like, got it.
If you do something that puts me in jeopardy, now I have something to come back on you with.
Yeah.
That's kind of what that is.
Can we take a second to appreciate the ridiculousness of someone getting in trouble for having a girl in their room, like a grown person? You know?
No, not at all.
That is just crazy. And you guys are still married. That's cool. So this was a long time ago because you said you were in the trailers, right? So that's when ANGLICO was being refurbished. They were redoing the CP.
That's when they were building the new complex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're still building the.
That was before
complex.
me. I showed up to the new complex and was like, holy shit, this place is awesome.
Yeah, and it has to last another 75 years. So take care of it, you ANGLICO.
Yeah.
Well, I saw they got the new Polarises outside. I drove by the other day just to reminisce.
ANGLICO has the Polarises now? Really?
Yeah, I was like, dang.
That's cool. Yeah. That makes sense.
So what was your wife's, what was her perspective on the story?
Oh, she was terrified. She was absolutely terrified.
She was what ninth?
Where did you find her at? It was in the room, but wasn't she like in the closet or something?
She was in the bathroom.
Let's go through your side again because people might be kind of confused about what we're talking about if they haven't heard it before.
Oh, okay. So we'll cut to we're doing room inspection. We go in, and ANGLICO is a bunch of wild Indians, anyways. So I always take the master key.
So if they didn't answer, you can still peek in. Isn't that illegal?
You're not doing the. Oh hell no! I'm the sergeant major. I was the sergeant major. If the president does it, it's not illegal. So you have to know your history to know what that line comes from. But so anyways, so I slip it, open the door, and so the rack is. What did I say? The rack is in disarray.
Disheveled.
Disheveled. The rack is disheveled. And then Farrell would start making fun of me because I actually have some words in my vocabulary. Anyways, so I look and there's these flip-flops with little butterflies on them. And I'm like, fucking Doc. And then
fucking Doc with his butterfly flip-flops.
I know.
With his long bleached hair and his...
Yeah.
So his butterfly flip-flops?
Yeah. Butterfly flip-flops. Doesn't make his rack. And there's a set of car keys with like girly car key things, And I'm like, oh my goodness.
I think it's a new Marine Corps.
So anyways, we're doing the thing and it's not too bad. It's lived in, but it's like, oh, I didn't expect anybody to check my room or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the CO comes in and I forget how it went, but anyways, we end up leaving, and you get that feeling,
Something is amiss.
Oh, I think that's when I called Staff Sergeant up there. So I'm like, hey, come here. What's your deal? You moron. You don't at least walk by in the morning and make sure that your Marines don't get caught with jacked up stuff, because that's kind of the Staff Sergeant role. Hey, you make sure your guys don't get caught when I come through. That's your job. My job's to catch them. Your job's to make sure they don't get caught. So you do what so I'm giving them the whole...
Know the rules of the game.
Yeah, it's a game. We're playing. I hit to you. You hit back to me. I hit to you. So anyways, so I open the door and I'm showing him. The flip-flops are gone. So...
Ninja. You're like,
the light comes on. I know they were there. I know I'm not crazy. Yeah. So he goes through and he goes into the bathroom. And he comes out and he goes, I got it. I'll take care of it. The whole thing. So I know he found her in there. He found her and he's trying to cover. I just gave him the whole speech, right?
Yeah.
So he's trying to cover Doc. And
you just got the rules of the game. It's the first time to implement it,
Yeah, so he starts, I got it. I'll take care of it, But the look on his face was a look of terror. Like he had the look like there's a body hanging in the shower. You know, that kind of look. So I go, so I'm going to go look, right? So I'm like, move. And I go look, and I got first of all, I got the photographic glasses that get dark in the sun. So when you're standing out by the window, they're dark.
Mm-hmm.
You know how dark those rooms are.
Yeah.
Back there, and the lights are off. So I open the door, and there's some resistance, and it's dark. So I do the whole warrior stance, and I put my hand, and it's a face, and it scared the living shit out of me. It was her face, and I put my hand, and I swear to God, I must have jumped out of my skin, because it scared. I was like, holy fucking shit, you know.
Yeah.
And I reached in there, grabbed her, pulled her out, and I'm like, you know, go get Doc or whatever. But
Yeah.
Funny.
But yeah, that was. I think I've never been scared, like startled that bad. You
Going
reach in
into
the
a dark
dark and
barracks
feel a
room.
face. It was like something out of hack and slash.
Why didn't you turn the
movie.
light on? Why didn't you just flip the switch, turn
I
the
don't
light
know
on?
why that.
I don't know if the
what deal
power's
was.
still out or not.
I don't know. There was some reason why the light. You know, I couldn't
Maybe
like
that's what
do
it
this.
was. Yeah.
But I was in my warrior stance, so I was ready
That's funny.
until I touched her face and I turned into a leaf in the wind.
So I had to have been what, like early 13 then? When did the CP or when did the new brigade spaces finish getting built?
It had to
don't
be
It was
early-
before I got there. I got there in January of 14 and it was all new.
It had to be
So-
early 13 because we're about ready to get ready to go on the Mew.
And yeah, and I got there in 12. We went to Afghanistan in 11, 12. Was it 12?
I can't remember because my Alpha had just gotten back from the Afghan deployment when I got chopped to Alpha.
Okay, so we got back before Christmas, so it must have been 12. And then you guys went on the Mew.
That
I
was,
guess.
you got back from the company Afghan deployment?
Yeah,
When was the last time that an ANGLICO had deployed as a full company?
that was it.
That's the only time since ever? Or
Oh no, that was the last time.
that was the
That
last
first
time?
Anglico did.
Yeah.
You know, until we left. I don't know what they've done now, but that was the last company deployment. We were supposed to do one more.
Yeah.
That was part of the deal that I had worked out to get to go to Anglico was they were going to do 2 company deployments back to back, 6 months apart. So I was like, oh, I'm going to get to go to Afghanistan twice.
Most people would be like, damn it. And you're over there like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
Do
and then
the
they robbed
deployments.
us after they're like, no, we'll just send detachments.
Well,
But-
when you guys went and you were the sergeant major, like, what was your role there? Because your entire company got piecemealed out across the entire country, right?
So you do a little company gunny type stuff because you got the ops chief, but he's busy doing ops.
Yeah, like real ops.
Yeah, so he's doing ops stuff. You do a little company gunny type stuff. And then what we did is we just went from outpost to outpost. And we just flew and, hey, what do you need? You know, kind of like morale trip.
Yeah.
What do you need? All right, who's being a little bitch? Okay. You know, you fix that person. And, oh,
Yeah.
we need a fan. Okay. And then you write it all down, come back, drive around Leatherneck, collect hurricane fans out of empty hooches, get them on the next bird, and or whatever they needed, you know.
Yeah.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
guys don't do stuff like, you don't want to go to somebody's house and just start fixing stuff. But you know, they get into rotation, they get into motion.
Yeah.
But like one of the hooches was a GP tent. It was hot as shit. They had an air conditioner, but it was always
Overheated.
overheated. Well, I'm
Yeah.
like,
They always overheat in the middle of the day when
Well-
it's completely hot out and when you actually need them.
but it wasn't covered.
Yeah.
So while we were there, I got the CO out there. I'm like, hey, grab some tent stakes and, you know, a sledgehammer, and we'll grab some camionets. Nobody's ever going to put the camionet that's on the vehicle up. We put that over the air conditioner. That shades the air conditioner, so now it's not in the direct sunlight. It was on the south side of the hooch, too, so it got the most sun of the most day.
Yeah.
And then I went inside and like, hey, everybody give me your poncho. Tied them all together and made a second ceiling in the GP tent. So there was the heat could generate up here and the air conditioning would stay below that second ceiling.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what you do. But you can't do too much of it because then you're like invading their space.
It's cool for you though. You got to travel around the country and see like all different parts of the country.
Oh yeah, and they always want to show you the cool stuff.
What was the shittiest place you went to?
It was all kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Oh, the one place.
Yeah, once you get forward, it is pretty shitty.
The one place that was kind of jacked up. There was a couple. We got stuck in. I think it was called Goresh.
Yeah, Upper Gresh Valley.
Somewhere up there. We got stuck somewhere with for like 3 days because the birds couldn't come in. There was a threat or whatever. IEDs, and we couldn't get out to where the riverbed where the birds were. So we played cards for 3 days and then did a little bit of Sanger watch with the Marines that were there. There was British, there was Brits, Afghans, and Marines. We had like 12 Marines.
Yeah.
That was a crappy place, but it was a cool place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
I don't know.
So you missed that deployment. You got there when they got back.
When they got back, Alpha was just kind of standing back up after like their post deployment and everything, and yeah.
Was Anglico your first duty station?
Kind of. So corpsmen, they get chopped to the larger units. So I was a Marine Headquarters group.
Yeah.
And so I got there as an E2. I worked under Chief Doran, who was absolutely wonderful. Pretty much taught me everything I ever knew about being a corpsman. And so I worked under him, I went to Field Med, came back, still worked for him. And then he, I believe, left to go work on Del Mar.
Okay.
And so we worked there, and with the intentions of trying to get to ANGLICO. And because that's what my core school instructor was. And he's like, hey, these are the orders that you guys want to go to ANGLICO. And so myself and Williams, who
was my corpsman,
who was Delta's corpsman, we went to boot camp, core school, Field Med, and picked orders to go to ANGLICO together. So
that's
cool.
pretty
wild.
We're ride or die kind of thing. No, I'm just kidding. So we both picked the same orders, and so we both got stationed on main side for a little while. And so my senior chief, she was like, "Oh, Fogg, I have a mission for you. You're gonna go with Intel Ground Sensor Platoon, and you're gonna do a mission with the Border Patrol for 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be chopped to them for 2 months, and go have fun." And so we went out to Intel Ground Sensor Platoon. Did like a little workup for training, made sure all the gear was right, and then they like to do a lot of see who the fittest guy in the platoon was, because
Oh, really?
they're all infantry guys with a secondary MOS of sensors, so they got
okay.
they got the mentality of I need to be the best. So we had competitions of PT competitions and then training, and then so finally we go work with the Border Patrol and plant sensors, and they do that in areas to supplement the Border Patrol, and then keep proficiency on their skills and then also. So that was a great time. And
that's a mission that a lot of people don't realize that the military does. Like when they talk about how they're moving military down to the border to do whatever missions they have them doing, it's like, we've had guys working on the border for years. Like that's an ongoing thing. Like,
and then the National Guard was down there. That's like their bread and butter for some of those states.
When you guys get moved over to work with those guys, don't you fall under the Border Patrol at that point? You're no longer like under the military command because you can't be operating in the U.S. under U.S. military.
We had to do whatever if we apprehended anybody, we couldn't even touch them. It had to be the Border Patrol, which was very interesting because we did come across people one day and we're like, "You get on the freaking ground."
Yeah, was it weird like coming across people that were, coming across the border illegally?
So it was weird because the one time I personally like physically caught a dude myself. It was weird because you could smell the marijuana in the air, and so I was like, there's people around, and so you're just scanning the hilltops, and all of a sudden you see these guys take off running, and so I just like told the Marines behind me, so we're on the same page of why I was kind of running to outflank them, and so I was like, hey, 4 guys, they went that way, and so we spread out online and just bum rushed this hill. And so since I was kind of motivated and I wanted to be the point man, the sergeant let me be the point man because they're like, we're not going to do anything, Doc. Sure, go for it. Well, needless to say, so I just took off and went a flank all the way around to the right because I was the furthest that way, and ended up cutting off a single guy. And this is a dude that you don't want to mess with. Just like tattoos, teardrops, and
Oh, really?
So I just like,
It looked like a straight gangbanger, huh?
oh, he was a dude that I wouldn't want to catch in a dark alley. And so I just like, it's like, get on the ground. And so he's just like, all right, and just gets on the ground. And then all the Marines just kind of posted up security, and we radioed into another team that was setting up sensors down the hill, and they ended up cutting off the rest of the guys, which was pretty cool.
Were you guys armed?
We did, but we didn't have any. We were condition 3 because of martial law and stuff.
Yeah.
But
So you had ammo, but you weren't loaded up.
not
or
one in the
anything.
chamber. No,
Yeah.
it was just strictly for self-defense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was cool. And the Marines were like, "All right, gather up." And I was like, "Hey boys, I got a guy over here." And they're like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I need an agent." And so a Border Patrol agent came over. He's like, "Fuck yeah, bro!" And
That's cool.
and then we were still smelling marijuana. So what they did is I kind of just walked up and over this little gully where they were hanging out. And sure enough, there was 250 pounds of bundles of marijuana that they carried over on their back.
What a stupid thing to like risk getting caught smuggling now. You know that it's like mostly illegal.
Yeah.
You know, or in a lot of places
Yeah.
illegal. I guess I'm spoiled. Well,
Well, that was 2012 as
Yeah.
well. So
That's true. Yeah, that's true. There was a boat. They just caught like somebody coming out of Canada into Washington. The Coast Guard, I think, caught dude 8 hockey bags full of weed. It was on Twitter. I was like, oh my god, like what a waste of resources.
That's
doing
just
that,
like a
but-
week's supply for most people. You know? 8 hockey bags. It's not
So
big.
you were actually you're catching actual like drug traffickers. You know if you want to call it that. Weed. They could have been carrying other shit too, but.
yeah.
What did that give you? Does that give you a different perspective when people talk about like border and like border security and like the?
Absolutely. So I don't want to get too political because I know this is a show, but you see these things all over the TV. They're like, oh, they put them in cages. And what they also don't tell you is that those cages were back there in 2012 when I was personally there.
Yeah.
And then what they also fail to tell you is that when you apprehend someone, regardless of if they're smuggling drugs or they're just a family coming across, they have to give them a bag lunch and a huge liter of water because who knows when the last time they were fed, who knows when the last time they had water. So they physically have to do that. It's like I don't know if that's that station.
Part of the SOP.
But it's an SOP.
Yeah.
So you roll them up, you give them a water. So you handcuff them in the front, and then you give them a water, you give them a bag lunch because, I mean,
Just
you
to
don't
get
want
some
them.
nutrients in them.
And then they're really strict on like, hey, we don't want this guy to go like die of heat exhaustion or dehydration in our custody.
Yeah, especially once it's in the border once the people are in the border patrol custody, it's like, you hear about these deaths and it's like the newspapers are just waiting for someone down there to die so they can be like, oh, this person was killed or died in their custody of this, and it's like,
And it's crazy.
a lot of these people are coming over with their own issues, and dude, that desert is no joke. What sector of the border was you on?
We were in Nogales, Arizona. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's in the summertime. So they were finding, not necessarily the Marines, but we would sit our little watch and watch our sensors, and you'd hear radio calls like, hey, we found a body, looks like they died of dehydration in the middle of the desert. And so they would send out resources, go collect that body, and send it back home to their people's family. You don't hear about that. It's crazy.
I took a critical thinking class in school when I was at Miracosta Community College. It's part of the writing program I had to take, and one of the subjects that we had to talk about and then write argumentative essays about was illegal immigration.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave us a bunch of resources. I mean, we're in Southern California, so it's easy for them to get resources. And one of them, some website they showed us was like a map of all the bodies that have been found along the border, and it shows like a heat map or like the little red dot wherever time everyone's been found. And it's just crazy how many bodies are found along the desert just because they die of dehydration or they get injured, don't make it. Like,
yeah, they get killed.
It's
off
crazy,
by the
man.
Coyotes. So the Flores decision, that's where the separation came from. So before then, they used to take everybody and put them like back home. There was only 35 agents on the border.
Oh wow!
The whole
in New Mexico, right?
New Mexico, yeah. The whole sector, all the way to El Paso to Deming, was 35 agents. That's at one time. So that's only like 5 guys working a day or 10 guys. They're on and off day night schedule.
How long is the border? Like 200 yards or 200 yards, 200 miles?
I don't know what the exact distance was that they had to cover, but there's
still
300 agents there now.
Oh, wow.
So back then it was 35, and they did horse patrol, and they'd horse patrol all the way down to the El Paso sector and all the way back. That's like a day and a half or whatever. Anyways, the Flores decision, they used to take them and just put them in the holding place, right? And there was a girl, I think she was 13 or whatever her age was. She was younger, and she was going to be assaulted by a couple of male detainees. And that's where the whole separating the families came from, was the federal court system said you have to protect them. You can't just put them all in there while you're processing them. They have to be separated.
Minors don't go to jails with parents.
Males and females and all that.
Absolutely.
So that's where the whole separation
Yeah, it was an
came
ACLU court case, wasn't it? Didn't the ACLU bring that case up in her defense, and now
they're doing the opposite.
Now they're arguing against the
And you can't keep minors. It's just, anyways, not to get too deep into it, but they pushed for that. But the it's changed. There was, at that time, you catch somebody, you put them through the system, you take them home, and now there's thousands, truckloads of people.
They just got a truckload the other day. Yeah, we're in San Diego, so for those that don't know, we're in San Diego. So if you watch the local news here, you see border stuff all the time. San Diego is the busiest border crossing, along the entire border. It might be in the entire world, right?
I've heard that before. I don't know how factual that is. I can Google it.
Because
sounds
I know people go back and forth and work. Yeah, dude, the border is such a weird. It's weird going to school and talking to people, because some of the people I go to school with are illegal immigrants. At San Diego State and stuff like that, because they're allowed to. We're in California; they can go to school and stuff.
I know, and they pay in-state tuition, while the rest of the people who are not have to pay out-of-state tuition. What's up with that?
Well, and my whole take on the border is I think, one, you got to have an you have to have a full spectrum of security, like having people like you down there who's doing sensor emplacements and stuff, having the border wall itself, because it slows the movement of people through and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And then having, foot patrols, horse patrols, UAVs. It's all one thing. Like, you see people complain about, like, oh, there's a video of someone climbing over the border wall. See, it doesn't work. It's like, yeah, it's slowing that dude down. Like, it slowed it down enough where you got a video of him. And it's kind of doing its thing.
Wall.
It's part of a whole.
Layers.
It's part of a whole process. And my opinion is, to really fix the border, you have to close some of these loopholes that people are exploiting to be able to stay in the country. And we need to get way better funding for the court system that are down there, because part of the reason, there's a couple reasons that people talk about how the system is so bogged down and delayed. The judges in the immigration courts along the border, I think it's they have on average 8 times more cases than their counterparts in the regular court systems. So they're so bogged down. And part of it is because of, one, the loopholes that people are trying to exploit to come into the country, and 2, it's just the bogged down part is they're just not enough of them. So my take is they need to fix the loopholes that people are exploiting and deport people quicker that don't have a reason to immigrate. Yep. If people have an actual asylum claim, and we're really serious about that, then we should be upset about the people that are trying to immigrate illegally, that are slowing down the process for the people that really need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this person's moving here because they want to get a better job in the United States. They don't necessarily need to come here, but they'd like to. Mm-hmm. Well, this person's moving here because they're in a gang-controlled area and their life is threatened. But now we're delaying them by months so that we can sort through all these bullshit reasons for people to come. Right. That also means that we should expedite the process to get people green cards to be able to work, because, working in the fields and stuff is a legitimate thing. But making green cards, making the process smoother, and securing the actual border will, one, allow people that are working in the fields get paid a correct wage. Anyone that argues that we shouldn't keep, or we shouldn't do more enforcement for illegal immigration because they're working in our fields and our lettuce prices will go up and this and that. And I'm like, dude, I can't. How can you argue for the exploitation of human beings just so your lettuce is 50 cents cheaper?
And
that blows my mind. You know what I'm saying?
Remember, before World War II, we didn't have this problem.
I mean, I think all the way up into the 70s, right? Wasn't it pretty much walk across the border?
I worked in the fields as a kid.
Yeah.
And probably 40% of the field workers were gringos.
Yeah.
Probably 40%. And then the other majority of the field workers, not all of them, but the majority, were legal immigrants. They were first generation immigrants that are on their way to not working in the fields their entire life. They wanted to move on to something else. Own a garage, or like I had a buddy that he bought some land and he put one at a time. He put trailer hookups and made his own trailer park.
Nice.
So his goal wasn't to work in the uvas or the grape fields forever. His goal was to move on.
That was a stepping stone to the next level.
So yeah, you can't exploit people like that. But even like you got who's a big famous guy, Cesar Chavez. He was an anti-illegal immigrant guy.
Was he? I don't really know much about him.
That's interesting.
He was big time. Matter of fact, his union used to go down to San Ysidro and beat up people as they came across the border and force them to go back.
Oh, really? Because it was lowering their prices they were receiving to work?
Because he wanted the citizens, first-generation citizens, who were field workers, to get paid a decent wage. And when you have illegal, hey, guys can pay them, not pay them.
I think the people that are moderate are not against immigrants coming in and working and stuff like that. No one's against that, but we do want to know who's coming here because, one, it helps national security, one. Two, it helps them because now they can't get exploited because we know where they're working and we know what they're getting paid.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So that individual farmer can't exploit these human beings by saying, hey, you can come over here and work for me, but you're only getting $5 a day or $5 an hour or what. I don't know what the going rate for an illegal immigrant is here in California. That was Cesar
Chavez thing. That's how he got porta-johns. If you look at the fields when you're going now, you'll see porta-johns at both ends. Well, when I was a kid, there was one porta-john, and it was always at the far corner. Well, you're not getting paid when you're walking from this end 700 yards to use the porta-john, 700 yards back, because you're getting paid by the bucket. Like when you're picking chili, you get paid by the bucket. So you pick buckets. When you get 2 buckets, you put them on your shoulder. You take them to the truck. They dump them in the truck, and you have like a little card, and they'll punch your card. Then at the end of the day, the number of holes in your card.
That's how it works, huh?
Times 50 cents. I think they paid us 50 cents a bucket at the time.
When I was like 14 and 15 in Indiana, they take kids out into the fields, and it's called detasseling. And you go down the rows of corn, and you pull the tassels off the top. There's a certain type of corn that you have to do this, so it doesn't crossbreed or something like that. But it would be like a ton of 14 and 15-year-olds. They'd put us all in like a van. We'd work for this farmer, and we'd get like an actual paycheck and stuff at the end of like 4 weeks. It'd be like 4 weeks that we'd be out there, and there were no bathrooms. We would just drive all over the place and detassel these fields. And it's all these kids out there just running down the fields pulling the tassels off. One time I got left in the field.
Oh.
One of the supervisors was like, Kramer, go back out there and make sure there's nobody else out, make sure the field's clear. And I was like, all right, good to go. And I go out there, and I'm coming out of the cornfield, and I see the bus driving away. And we're like an hour away from my town. And I'm like running down the road like, no. Dude, they drive off without me. I'm like, what the fuck? So I had to find a farmhouse, like go knock on the door like, hey, can I make a long distance phone call? Because this is 97 or 98, something like that. So cell phones weren't like,
you didn't have cell
not
phones.
Everybody had a cell phone. And I'm like, can I make a long distance phone call? Like, these people left me out here, and they're just like, what the fuck? This kid is serious.
So who's responsible for getting the head count? Hey, did you count bodies before we pulled
They
away?
thought I was going to sue them, man. Like,
That's
their
funny.
director of operations or somebody drove out there in his car and picked me up and was like, hey, man, you good, man? Like, the whole way home, you want to stop at Subway and get a drink? Like, hey, you hungry? Like, you're trying to be super cool. And I'm like, no, dude. Like, I know why you're trying to be like this. Like, I don't sue your fucking ass, but I just want to go home. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me my paycheck.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
He got the porta-johns
That's cool.
put out there because people were being treated poorly, but that was because of illegal immigration.
Yeah.
It was making it easier. So there's a whole thing. But on the other side, people are like, oh, we have to asylum. Their life sucks. Why is that my problem? Why is it the United States problem that you are in Honduras and your life sucks and it's all full of gangbangers? That's not our problem.
Well, I mean, I think we can help. We can help out.
We can.
I think there's legitimate. I think there's legitimate asylum claims that should be.
Oh, there absolutely is, but we don't have to. So what the people present it as, you have to help. No, I don't. I will help because I think it's the right thing to do, but I don't have to. So don't say I have to.
People forget that we let about 1 million people a year on average into the country,
and we give millions of dollars to those countries to try to help them out. Yeah. Now we could have solved this problem a long time ago. Make Mexico our favorite nation trade partner, instead of China.
Texas Junior.
Yeah.
What year did you join again?
The Army or the Marine Corps?
Yeah.
The Marine Corps in '86, the Army in '83.
Okay, so even in the Army, wasn't that the time frame where we were doing operations in South America?
Yeah, we did a couple down there when I was in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Like what?
We did
Drug interdiction stuff, or
one was a regular training thing. You go down to Honduras, you go to the Army base,
uh-huh.
and you do jungle training. And then one we did another on the border where, it was a Sandinistas thing.
Yeah.
So there's a border between El Salvador, I think it is.
I don't know.
I think it's Honduras and El Salvador. And El Salvador was the bad guys. They were the Sandinistas or the communists.
Mm-hmm.
Honduras were our friends.
Okay.
And we basically did like show of force operations up and down the river. You just patrol. All we did was patrol, along with the local special forces dudes. Their special forces.
Because that was during the increase, like during the war on drugs and stuff like that, right? That's when we started.
I didn't know much about it.
You were just a
I was just
junior
a
guy
snuffy,
doing what
just
you're supposed to be
what
doing.
I was told, like, hey, don't shoot unless we tell you can shoot, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That just goes to show, like, both of you guys, doing something like that is something I think people that aren't in the military don't really think about. That would be something that you would do, like go to South America and do operations down there with them, or go work on the border patrol doing emplacing sensors and stuff.
I never thought I was going to do it, but
Yeah.
it was awesome that I did.
What do the sensors do? I know about the platoon and I know how they operate, but I don't really fully understand like what kind of data they're getting from the sensors.
So the sensor can pick up
If it's not classified or if it's unclassified.
No, I'll just do generalities. So it can differentiate between human, animal, tire tracks. It can differentiate between all of these things, and then they also have a camera attached to one of the sensors, so you can track which way people are moving and how many people, what are they carrying. Yep. So one of the cameras will trigger, or one of the sensors will trigger a camera, so they take pictures, and so
it's like a trail camera, kind of.
it is, yeah. And so you could see, you're like, hey, we have about 40 people, and then this other sensors, you're like, nope, oh, okay, they're following this trail, boom, go cut them off. And so it's actually pretty interesting.
Nice.
But yeah, the Border Patrol sensors compared to the Marines were like, the Marines looked at them and laughed because they're like from Vietnam, and so that's why they love having us down, because the equipment that the Marines had was so sophisticated compared to theirs, just because they're like, hey, we're working with what we got.
Yeah, they get all their stuff from Dermo. I did the same thing in Tecate with the Dragon platoon.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the night vision sight, and the tow guys. Now they had a tow camera or tow sight system mounted in the bed of a pickup truck, but there was one for that whole sector. So we did the same thing. We'd go down there, and there are certain spots where they can't see you. So we'd get in the back of these beat up Suburbans, go down there, and you'd go to these, and they know where the spot is, and they'd be like, kick open the back door, you roll out, stay there on the side of the road till the sun goes down, and then move up into your hide position, and then observe the border, because we had NVGs.
Yeah.
The Border Patrol at that time had no night vision other than that one tow sensor. So we had the NVGs, and we had the Dragon night sight system.
Nice.
The Dragon was the before the Javelin, right?
Yeah, it was the
Precursor
anti-tank
to-
system before the Javelin.
Nice.
But it had a night sight heat, and you could and we'd call on the radio, hey, the fires on the south side are going out, because they'd build fires on the south side of the border,
Mm-hmm.
and they'd start putting them out to
Ah.
darken the background so they wouldn't be backlit, and then he'd sneak across, and then you call the Border Patrol and tell them. But it was funny because it was, you'd call them, you'd be looking through your NVGs, and you'd be like, hey, he's on there. There's a whole group of them on the other side of that bush. Well, he can't see. It's dark.
Yeah.
He's got a flashlight.
Yeah.
Like, no, turn left. No, your left. No, I'm sorry, my left. Yeah, turn the other way. And you watch
Talking
the
them
Border
on.
Patrol agent, and then he'd be like, oh, holy crap. Like, yeah, right there on the other side of that bush. They
Yeah.
were cool. There were some former military guys that were, on the Border Patrol. They'd tell her, hey, don't say over. And there's certain radio techniques that we use that they didn't use. So it just slowed down the process. It just got to tell them, hey, go to your left. You got him.
Did you have any guys? Do you know any guys that left that program and like went into the Border Patrol?
Actually, I do. I have a couple buddies that.
They were like, this is cool.
It was like a huge recruiting mission, actually. I truly believe that's what it was.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
they decided, like, that they were going to settle down, get out of the Marines, and yeah, sure enough, they work for the Border Patrol now.
I hear it's not bad. Like, if you're into that, you know, like if you're into that police work or going through another academy, you know, you have to go through police academy, so it's going to be like, or Border Patrol academy, so it's going to be like boot camp again. Not the same, obviously, but
yeah,
you know, I'm in my 30s. I thought about Border Patrol. I was like, dude, I'm in my 30s. I definitely don't want to hear another grown man yell at me to prove that I can be here kind of deal. Like, it's just too much of a hassle. I don't think I could do something like that.
Yeah,
But
it's like the ultimate game of hide and go seek. Like, if you see somebody, you're like, ugh, and then your adrenaline starts rushing, and then you're just like, you go and cut them off. And yeah, they're shorthanded at the time. I mean, I'm sure they've hired a lot more people now as of recently, but yeah, you'd have like one dude trying to apprehend 40 people, and the coyote always gets away naturally, but
yeah.
he just ditches the people, and they're just like lost in the middle of the desert. And so
How often was it like families and like women and children and stuff compared to like dudes? Like, you know.
So the drug smugglers were good. So we caught them. We hit them hard for the first week, and after that, they're like, okay, we know what's going on, and they were really
They kind of
smart.
backed off.
Yeah, they were very well organized. Where just the people trying to get snuck across the border, that was the ratio to that was a lot more. So you were getting families, women, children, and because the coyotes, they would like string them up like 40 people. Like they would all just go in a straight line, and you just see them in the violet. You're like, holy crap! And so, yeah, there was a lot more women and children there were, because the drugs were just so well organized that if they got hit hard one day, they know not to go back to that spot ever again. So
Yeah, and they got it figured out, man.
Yeah,
It's about profit with them.
Yeah.
But the people are just pawns, I think, in their game, in the drug smugglers' game.
yeah.
Have you heard now they're a lot of times they're smuggling supplies across, and they've just gone into the national forest, into these like deep parts of the national forest and stuff where people don't generally go unless you're like a backpacker, you know, and they've set up these illegal grow locations and stuff like that. They don't really smuggle as much over. They just grow it here illegally. They have crews that are up in the mountains, up in the national forest and stuff like that. Yeah, dude, these the park rangers and stuff like that, constantly running into illegal grow operations. You know,
It's so profitable, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'd hate to be a park ranger and step on a booby trap or a,
yeah.
you know, I mean,
I can't remember. I heard I don't remember what podcast it was, but they had one of those park rangers come on and talk about, or, you know, he might have been DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, but he came on and was like, dude, my job went from like going out and making sure like, hey, make sure you have your license when you're hunting deer, to like stumbling across an illegal grow operation with armed people there. You know, like they had to start like carrying weapons and like and they'd lead other federal forces into raids. I don't remember what podcast it was on, but it was super interesting to hear about.
I remember hearing an article like that. They recruited like Marines or SOF veterans, and they were doing like hits on illegal grows. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I wish they could make it. I wish they wouldn't over-regulate to the point where it still makes it profitable to do it illegally.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's kind of like alcohol. Alcohol, you can make it yourself.
Yeah, but why?
The time and trouble, for $35, I can buy the best whiskey. Probably not the best whiskey, but it's the best I'll drink.
Yeah,
You know?
good enough. It gets the job done.
Hey, I'm good with $9 the bottom shelf at Albertsons. I'm getting that one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think here in California or in San Diego specifically, it's like 20% higher if you buy it legally from the dispensaries. Like if you go to the actual established dispensaries, it's like the costs are about 20% higher. What Farrell and I have been going to these markets, which it feels like, how could it be illegal? Like, how could this illegal operation be set up? Because it's so big. You're talking about people with tables out there and like pop-ups and like, you know, they're selling people with pounds of weed, just 20 pounds of weed laid out. We went there one time. A guy had probably more than a 5-gallon bucket's worth of shrooms in a bag, you know. And I know those are illegal, so that's why I was like, this thing is illegal. But you pay like $5 to get into this market that's out in the open on a basketball court. You know, they have like a guy sitting there. You have to wear a mask now because of the whole corona. You have to have gloves on. They make you use hand sanitizer, and then you walk, and it's outdoors. And you walk to all these tables with different weed vendors, and they all have their strains that they're selling. But it's like, why would I go to the dispensary and pay for an ounce $200+ when I can go to that and get like an ounce probably plus edibles plus another eighth of maybe something like a higher grade, something something like
yeah,
that.
that's the problem with it, because it's actually made, what I've read, I don't know this for a fact, but what I've read is it's made the illegal business more profitable.
Maybe, yeah.
Because more people are doing illegally because they just can't go through the
selling by volume
and the hassle of, I got to get a license, I got to get inspected,
And every city has its own rules. So Vista, you can't have it. Carlsbad. Nowhere in North County has dispensaries. The only place is down here in San Diego. Nowhere in North County has legal dispensaries. I'm almost certain. I know there were a couple dispensaries in Vista I would go to. Come to find out they were illegal. They got raided at some point and shut down. But like even the ones I thought were like legitimate legal ones, they were apparently not. But it's like you said, it's the licensing. You have to pay to get licensed, and you got to wait for someone to say, "Yeah, you can. You're approved." And then you have all the regulations of you can bring bags of weed. You can have your product there, but you can't fill the bags on site. So like if I want to buy an eighth of weed, they'd had to have packaged that off site and brought it in. They can't have like a pound sitting here and go, oh, you only need an eighth of an ounce? Like, here, let me weigh that out real quick.
Right.
That's illegal. It has to be packaged elsewhere and brought. It's I don't know, it's kind of crazy. But anyway.
So I was going to ask you, so you left ANGLICO and you went to...
So I did the Border Patrol mission, proved my salt, so to say. They sent me to a few courses to make sure I'm spun up on medical training. Went to ANGLICO. Did 2 deployments there, and then I went to be a SERE instructor in Maine. So might give you a run for your money of making Marines cry. So
how did you get chosen to be a SERE instructor? How did that come about?
So fortunately,
is that a normal doc thing?
No, actually it's not. So fortunately, ANGLICO was having an issue keeping their corpsmen. So what was happening was the whole MHG as a whole was short corpsmen. So the corpsmen would deploy, and the MHG would be like, "Yeah, we're taking them. Sorry." And so what the chiefs were trying to do was like, hey, we're going to school these corpsmen up so we can justify why they have to stay here.
Oh, okay.
So that's why at ANGLICO, I got to go to SERE school, and then I went to cold weather medicine, and then I went to LA trauma, where you got to see some awesome trauma. And so at that point, and that's why Williams got to go to jump school.
Yeah.
Because now they were able to justify, like, hey, you can't take these guys.
We've already invested.
We've invested this money, now we're keeping them.
I think he also got to do that trauma course.
You only hear a doc
maybe
say
he
that.
Didn't actually.
You only hear a doc say, I got to see some awesome trauma. Like,
Let's back up on. I'd like to talk through your medical training, because we haven't. I've had my buddy Doc Emil has come on for the first 2 episodes. We actually recorded a 3rd episode, but the audio was so bad. I was like, dude, I can't release this.
Bummer.
But he talks about some of the medical training, but he went straight to a line company. He was with 2-8 and then did Afghan pumps, and he did an Afghan pump with me 3 times at Singing Valley.
Yeah, I was gonna say 8th Marines have a good reputation.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to episodes 1 or 2, go back, because he went to episode 2 is he and I talking mostly about our time as Afghan military army advisors, Afghan National Army advisors. But the first episode is his first 2 deployments to Singin. So, which the first one he got blown up like the first month he was there and got medevaced out. So it's a pretty wild story.
Hard dude.
But he didn't get to do any of the like more advanced medical training like you're talking about. From what I understand, he can correct that. Come on and correct me if he wants. We got to do like live tissue training. We did get to do that. But let's start with after your basic MOS school. Okay, you've completed that. You're a corpsman now. You hit MHG, which is Marine Headquarters Group, which is now Marine Intelligence Group. I think they changed it to MIG, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they changed it from MHG to MIG. It's the MIG, Marine Intelligence Group. Anyway, what kind of medical training were you doing there that you were talking about before you came to ANGLICO?
So I went to the Border Patrol mission, and as soon as I did that, the Master Sergeant talked to my senior chief, like, hey, we want this kid. They're like, sorry, that was a test trial. He's going to ANGLICO in 3 weeks. So what I did was I went to Combat Trauma Management, which is the corpsman 2-week PIG course, live tissue.
Okay.
So a lot of corpsmen that go to a grunt battalion or some type of operational unit, they'll go there just to make sure that they have a good foundation, because it's a good course. It really makes you like, oh crap, this is really blood.
Yeah.
And so they really drive that, reinforce those good March P acronyms, make sure you know how to do it, and then they stress you out a little bit. They'll play loud music. The instructors will be yelling at you, but it's nothing personal. They're just trying to stress you out as much as they can in the civilian sector. And so I did that. It was a 2-week course, and then But before that, I went to LA Trauma, which was for I think I was 19 years old at the time.
Oh, really?
19-year-old E3 corpsman. It was just like, fuck.
Yeah, that's usually more experienced guys or.
Yeah, so it was a lot of IDCs, a lot of
SOCOM dudes do
doctors, and then a lot of senior corpsmen that had been around the block for a while. I was like one of the only E3s that was in that course, and once again, I was just blessed to be there. So here at that school, they'll have you do things like they'll have you work in the ICU, the burn ICU, the OR, and the ER at LA Trauma because they want these corpsmen to almost be desensitized in a way.
Yeah.
So like your first time seeing like massive trauma is in this setting. So if you go down range, you're not, and it's one of your Marines, one of your buddies, you're not like froze. So they're trying to get you prepared to like, hey, this is some of the stuff you're gonna see, and this is how you treat it.
Dude, I'm just getting goosebumps, like for real, like just thinking about it. Like the trauma, like you said, massive trauma. I mean, until you see that, like something bleeding out, like the pig, or you definitely want to see like do work on like a pig or something like that before you go overseas, and you're the guy, because if something happens, you're the dude. LA Trauma, you have a whole team there. You could probably like, hey, this is kind of too much. I'm gonna step back, and someone can probably fill in. But when you're out on a foot patrol, you're the dude.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it, man. I shout out to all the corpsmen out there. That's not a job I would have ever wanted to have done.
It's got to be pretty challenging. We had a doc. We got hit by IED, and a piece of shrapnel went through the vent, like the side of the 7-ton.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the back, and it hit the kid right here, underneath his helmet, went across the top of his head and came out over here.
Damn.
So of course the vehicle stops, counting heads, and I go to check on the driver, and Doc came out, and he came in through the passenger side to check on the driver, and the passenger was all shot up, but he was like walking wounded.
Yeah.
So he pulled him out, and I said, hey, look at this dude, Doc. What's his name? Start with a P. Anyways, that was his first experience with trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so you couldn't get the kid's helmet off. Undo the chin strap, go to take his helmet off, and it kept getting hung up. So I had to turn it sideways because part of his skull had come out.
Damn.
Oh, fuck.
Because it went across his head, split his skull open, and came out over here, so it brought part of his skull and some gray matter out. And I felt bad for Doc because he's trying to. There's not much you can do. You can't like push the guy's head back in. Mm-hmm. You can bandage it, and in the meantime, the kid takes his dick out and starts pissing on me.
Brain injury, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a brain injury and he has to piss. So I'm standing in the doorway of the driver's side doorway, holding him up so Doc can try to like wrap his head or something. And the kid takes his dick out and starts pissing on me.
Jeez.
And I'm like, come on, bro.
Come on.
Yeah, okay.
But that was Doc's his first try, and he was shaking. I could see him. I was like, it's okay, man. It's all gonna be good.
Just breathe, man. Just take a breath.
Yeah, it's all good. But he was trying to tape. I remember he was trying to tape the bandage with the recruit tape, with the medical tape.
Yeah.
It's not sticking to anything because there's blood everywhere.
Blood, and you're probably sweating with the adrenaline.
Yeah, and there's blood running all down his front, and the tape's not sticking. I'm like, dude, we'll take him out, Mm-hmm. But Doc and I was like, oh man. But that has got to be the shocker because you're the guy.
Did the kid make it?
He did. He went to Palo Alto.
Goodness.
I haven't seen him in like 7 or 8 years, 10 years. I think the last time we saw him was 10 years ago. But he was at Palo Alto. He had to learn to speak, and I'm not sure if he ever completely recovered. I don't think he did. Mm-hmm. But he had to learn to walk, to speak, to eat. He had no motor function when I saw him.
Yeah. So when you went to LA Trauma and you started working there, like how did that go? Like you show up, it's like day one. What did they kind of give us, for people that don't know anything about it, kind of a rundown of like what you did there, and maybe if there was any kind of cases that stand out that you remember you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's some cases I'll never forget. I'll tell you that much. But so day one you check in. So you go to LA Trauma, which is actually Los Angeles County Hospital. It's the largest training hospital in the entire world. And so the Navy has a small detachment of instructors, and you go there and you learn some classes, and then you do some labs where they have like a So it's mostly geared towards corpsmen that are like in a shock trauma platoon. That way, hey, you're getting this serious trauma patient, you got to stabilize them, and it really helps you kind of learn how to work as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have nurses and doctors, and everybody has their position. So when that patient comes in, it's just a clockwork. Like, boom, everybody goes to their job. That way no one's like, oh, what do I have to do? Like, it's like, nah, bitch, you got vitals, you got airway, you got this. And it's clockwork. Everybody knows beforehand, and you just, boom, you do it. And so they reinforce those skills, and then they talk about things like suturing, and you do like labs where how you learn how to stitch people up, and then you go to the prison ward and you stitch up people who are being shanked, like real life. You learn it, you go do it. And then you do things like you practice chest tubes. You put in chest tubes, and then you go practice on a mannequin, and then you go on a real life cadaver that they have donated a cadaver to the US military, and you practice chest tubes on a cadaver. You practice crikes, and then everybody takes turn. I mean, one person puts the crike in, and then everybody else takes turns kind of simulating where they cut, and then they put the tube in on a real life cadaver, dead body. And so
that's got to be fucking weird. You're 19.
I was 19 years old, and I was like, man, this is awesome.
So was that your first dead body?
This is my first dead body, but the first death happened at the hospital as well. So it was just like, for a 19-year-old, I'm like, fuck.
So, like, tell that story. Like, I mean, what you can. Like, what happened? Like,
So with the cadaver?
oh no, the guy, the first death.
Okay, so the first
Being
death.
all morbid here.
There was a few there, but the first one that I'll never forget is because, well, going back to the cadaver, we also learned thoracotomies. So I'll tell you what a thoracotomy is before I talk about that story, because it plays a part in it. So a thoracotomy is a last-ditch effort. A lot of hospitals don't even do it because it's a 3% success rate of actually stopping the bleed and saving that patient's life. So LA County does it because it's the largest training hospital in the world. It trains the military, it trains Keck medical students, and it trains a lot of foreign exchange doctors that are there to learn. And so they do it if they feel like they have to. A lot of college, or not a lot of hospitals won't. And so what it is you essentially, you can do a full clamshell or a half. And so you literally just cut along the ribs, and there's a rib spreader. You just pull open the ribs, and so it exposes the heart, the lungs, the aorta, because it's a last-ditch effort to stop the bleed. So we did practice that on a cadaver as well.
Stop the bleeding from where, though? From anywhere?
So right there, you're kind of looking where it's coming from, and a lot of the times, the procedures, they just clamp. They clamp the descending aorta. Forgive me if I'm misspoken, but they clamp the descending aorta temporarily just to stop the bleed so they can get them to the OR.
Okay.
There's going to be somebody that I might be misspeaking. I apologize. But I'm pretty sure it's the descending aorta. They just clamp it to try to stop the bleed. And so so now to the other story, the first death. So we were in there, and I was doing my ER rotation, which it was kind of chill. Broken arms. I'd be go splinting broken arms, and you get some stab wounds. I go stitch up some stab wounds, and then when I was bored, just because I didn't like to sit stagnant, I would go to the prison ward, just kind of shoot the shit with those dudes. And then also, there's a lot of sutures. Like the prison shanking is a real thing, apparently.
You just have dudes that have been shanked on standby for you to sew them up, like ready to go.
Yeah, and a lot of those dudes are really cool. So you get the stigma of like, oh, a prisoner, stay away. But I'd be like, hey, my name's Tyler. I'm here. I work with the Navy. You mind if I treat you today? And a lot of the times, like, oh, you're in the Navy? My son's in the Navy. And we'd start building that relationship. And before I got down and dirty, like, I remember one gentleman was like, hey, just to let you know, I have HIV. You might want to double glove. And I was like, hey, I appreciate you telling me. I really do. But hey, we're just going to get down and dirty. I'm good at what I do.
I've drank out of a water bowl, man.
Did that make you kind of like? Did that make you kind of like when he said he has HIV?
LA County treats apparently the largest HIV rate. I'm not sure if it's in the United States or California, but they treat a lot of HIV patients.
Really?
So they really stress like, hey, if you touch anybody, wear gloves.
Yeah.
My ER rotation, everybody's pagers started going off, the trauma pagers. That means something big's happened. So I walked away, and there was a bunch of news reporters to do a segment on gang violence or gunshot. And so one guy came in. There was a drive-by shooting. He got a ricochet in the calf. He was fine. And then all of a sudden, everything went nuts. And so there was a gang shooting. So what happened was apparently this guy was at his house, got a knock on the door, and got clapped 5 times in the chest at point blank. And so we were all lined up.
Straight assassination.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was. He made somebody mad. And so what it did is we did everything we're taught. Hey, everybody has a job, and you just line up. And so when the firefighters, EMTs, they can just pull the gurney in and then
hand off,
let everybody go to work. And so that's what happened. And you want to talk about some hard dudes, is those firefighters and paramedics. Like, these guys were running through the hospital as there was a firefighter paramedic doing chest compressions on this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's like some movie shit.
it was definitely some sexy movie stuff, but it was real life. It was right there. And so you see this guy just, he was jacked up. And so the doctors didn't waste any time. They kind of had a plan already based off what the ambulance, the communication with the ambulance, what they were telling them, because the guy had flatlined in the ambulance. So they just went, they hooking up blood and went straight to thoracotomy, half clamshell. So they just cracked his ribs, and they literally pulled out an NFL-sized football blood clot and just threw it on the floor.
Oh,
Because they were just trying to find the bleed. And so they hooked him up. They had another guy on blood. He was just, his sole mission was to do blood. And so he was pumping O-neg blood straight into him, and it went straight on the floor. And so the doctor's like, fuck. And so while they were doing stuff, the guy's heart had officially stopped.
Yeah.
And they're like, so this is the effect that some of the drugs they were pushing. They like, Navy guy. And I was standing right next to this doctor, and I was like, yeah. He's like, cardiac massage. And so something we talked about at the cadaver lab. So here I am, like, fingers interlocked, because you don't want to, the fingers could puncture the heart. So fingers interlocked, and here I am, 19 years old, just pumping this guy's heart with my hands until they can figure something else out. And so,
what does that feel like?
yeah, it's got a feel of its own. Just imagine kind of like a, I guess, like a wet tennis ball that you're just kind of.
How do you know not to squeeze it too hard? Like, oh, I popped it.
It's so if you have like a tennis ball, there's only so far it's gonna resist, and it's kind of like that. I mean, at least that's what I was
get
doing.
Excited and
Did it surprise you, like the feeling of it? Like when you did it, you're like, oh shit, this is weird. Like this isn't
I
what
did
I
on the
expected.
cadaver, but I mean, the cadaver, it wasn't really warm. It wasn't really fresh blood, so it was a little bit different than cadaver, and so it was kind of like a.
Dude, no
I'm
way.
really doing this. My adrenaline was through the roof, and
Yeah.
I was just like, yes, sir, chicken, doing what I was told, because, I mean, I was just watching, and they threw us in there in the loop, and then another one of my buddies, because they weren't sure if the blood was going to the other side, even though all the gunshot wounds were on this side, so they're like, Navy guy, put in a chest tube. So my buddy put in the chest tube on the other side, and then, so they're like, all right, they tried shocking it. So like boom, with these little paddles that go on the heart itself, and go boom, and heart still wasn't there. So they injected some epinephrine straight into the, and that started the heart again. And then when the epinephrine wore off, it just kind of stopped again. So they're like, they just told the nurse to go for a ride, and the nurse just kind of had one knee setting on and took over the cardiac massage while they brought him up to the OR, where they just did a Y intersection, and they opened everything up, and they're like, they pronounced him dead because they had it had perforated the descending aorta, which is a vessel that's like, if you put 3 of your fingers together, you could stick that in the descending aorta. So that's a huge artery. And
I know
so
it was that big.
that's where all the blood was coming from, was his descending aorta, and it perforated his colon and a few other things. And so the surgeon's like, yeah, there's
5 gunshot wounds to the chest, man. I mean,
so
yeah.
jeez.
yeah.
So that was my
descending
first
aorta.
death. Yeah.
Is that on the way out of the heart? Like, okay, the heart's pumping, it's pushing blood out through there. Is that
So
why
you
that's
have
so
your
important?
you have your aorta, which pretty much the way I break it down is one goes up, one goes down. Descending, it sends all your blood, so you're going down this way, and it gives you your blood to your arteries in your legs.
Okay.
And so
Ascending is upper part of your
yep,
body.
it goes up,
Okay.
and then yeah, so that's the easiest way. And hopefully I'm not misspeaking. If somebody fact checks me, I'm sorry.
It's close enough.
But that's the way I break it down. One goes up, one goes down, and that's the blood that supplies your lower extremities. And so it's a huge artery.
So it's just pushing blood out. Blood's coming into the heart, and it's just pushing it out because it's got to be
Exactly. So when they were pumping that blood into his body, it went straight in and right on the floor because that's how big it was.
Oh, what a waste of blood.
Yeah. So it was,
dude, what a crazy. That's ugh.
That was my first one.
I couldn't do it, man.
I know. How do you be so awesome and stay so humble?
I just look at it as, hey, because a chaplain, like a civilian chaplain came, pulled everyone, like the doctors, the foreign exchange doctors, Navy. They're like, hey, a lot of this might be your first death. Anybody have anything? They went around, asked anybody if they had any issues, and I was like, I didn't personally know the guy. I'd be torn if it was one of my Marines. And the guy's like, okay. Yeah. A lot of people say that. They didn't know him personally. So the way I looked at it was like, hey, I'd rather experience this like, oh shit moment there instead of having it be one of my ANGLICO Marines. So
yeah, somebody you know. That was always the common experience. Like dead bodies. We shot a dude in the neck, and he fell like this, and he bled out into this part of his arm. Ooh. So all his blood came out of the artery into here, and by the time we maneuvered around to where he was at, the top layer was dry from the heat of the sun.
And it crusted up.
And it was kind of like a little balloon. And of course, what do? The Marine thing, you poke it, and then the smell. And but there's no.
Was it an Iraqi dude?
Yeah.
Had he been shooting at you guys or something?
I hope so. I hope he was the guy that was shooting at us.
If not, he knows now.
Yeah,
fuck, man.
But yeah, there was an RPK shooting at us from that thing, and then a guy in the tower shot him. We were on the ground, and we went around. But so the point is, if it's not one of us, it doesn't really, whatever, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know, man. I don't know.
You got a bigger heart than the rest.
I think it could be. I couldn't do a job like that and be that desensitized. I don't think. You know what I'm saying? I think that changes you as a person. You know.
Yeah. You got a
and
heart.
people will say that happens to you in the military. It does, and you do get desensitized to a lot of stuff. But man, I couldn't imagine being a firefighter or like Joel Flores talked. You know, I was talking to him one day, and he was saying how he had run it. I think he had gone across 2 bodies that day. I think, you know, up to that point or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you were living in a completely different world than me. I'm chilling at home, going to college, and like smoking weed and like hanging out. And you're over here like dealing with bodies and
Is
shit.
Is he a firefighter?
He's a police officer in Colorado.
Good for him. Yeah.
And that's a challenge in itself. But I don't think it's just the military, because when we did the Tecate thing, there was a fire a couple weeks before. And a group of immigrants had got caught in the fire and burned to death.
Oh, fuck.
Damn.
So we're doing our maneuver, and one of the Marines picked up the head of a woman by the hair, and it was detached from the body because they had burned up in the, you know, it was like the fire season or whatever.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And he picked up the head, and he's like, I am the greatest jungle warrior. And he's holding his head up in the air. And I was like, put it down, man. Bacteria, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just personalities.
I've had my buddy talked about when he was in Fallujah, you know, Michael Hanthorne was on. He's talked about before. I don't know if my camera stopped recording or not. Hold on a second. He had talked about before that when they were in Fallujah, he was assigned to cleaning up dead bodies during the clear. That was his kind of role there. He was a truck driver, and then he got assigned to 3-1. And they're like, hey, dude, you guys are mortuary affairs. So you're like the house behind the house that they're clearing. Like they're in there clearing the house. You're in the one behind it, pulling the bodies and shit out of there.
Damn.
And I'll get this video fixed here in a second for people that are watching this. And he had talked about how, you know, after a couple weeks of just cleaning up bodies, I think he said during the whole thing they had cleaned up over 600 bodies. People started doing shit like that.
Yeah.
You know, you're so desensitized to it. You start to, you're like in a bad place, I imagine. Like, you know, you do shit that just you wouldn't normally do, you know? Like, it's just a different world.
And therein lies the thing. You got to be careful. You know, you don't want to get too far outside where you're, you know, or you don't want to allow your Marines or sailors to get too far outside, because then they'll go too far. They'll make a mistake.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like when we did the morgue in Iraq, when I was doing the walk around, my buddy was the company gunny for the company we were leaving. And he's like, dude, wear your gloves. And I couldn't get the dexterity down. So I cut the fingers off the gloves. And so we go to the morgue. And you have to search the morgue. And you have to watch the hospital because it was a Haji. They do planning there because they knew we wouldn't blow it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so you go into the rich part of the morgue, or the people that had money, and they actually had a refrigerated room that didn't have an air conditioner, but it had its own generator to run the air conditioner. And that was just bodies stacked like cordwood. But they were kind of semi-refrigerated. But there was a dude on the table that was burned up. And he was only like that big. But he was all burned up.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of gross. But then we had to open the tractor trailer. And the tractor trailer is where all the poor people got put.
Oh, that's gotta stink.
And the intel people had to come through, and we had to, and so my buddy's like, hey, dude, you'll never have to do this, but you need to know what's going on so you can understand what everybody else is going through. I'm like, yeah, okay, no problem. So we open up the tractor trailer, and they're just stacked in there.
Ugh.
And they're oozing.
Oh,
so
dude.
the floor is like jelly nastiness. And the intel guy's got to do the eye scanny thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you do naturally? I climb up the little ladder, and I grab the frame of the door, and I pull myself in, and then I put my other hand over here. Well, they've already cleaned out the last load of bodies, so there's ooziness on the walls. So now I got this shit on my hand.
Oh, gross.
I got this human decomp, and you're thinking, oh man, it's really dirty here. There's bacteria, and I'm like, oh, now I can't wipe it on myself. Like normally you do this.
Yeah, what do you do? Wipe goo on you?
Yeah,
You know,
and I'm like, and then Miller was
Hey,
like,
intel guy, come here. Good job.
good job, bro. But yeah, they're just stacked up, and the bottom ones are being crushed from the weight of the top ones.
That's
And
so
they're,
gross,
They're
man.
disintegrating. It stinks, like you said.
Yeah.
And
I
Miller's
can't
like,
imagine.
I told you to freaking wear your gloves. I'm like, God.
I'm surprised they do that because don't they have to bury them within like 24 hours or something like that? Isn't
Because-
that the Muslim culture?
I have no idea what the backstory is.
Those are just unclaimed bodies, huh?
Well, the way he explained it to me, and God knows how good his information was. We
Yeah.
get it from someone else who gets it from someone else.
Yeah.
But these were the people that weren't claimed, that were poor, and those are the people that the family had enough money to say, that's mine. But when we went inside the hospital, there was a dude smoking a cigarette and sewing up a kid, and the ashes were falling in the wound.
Oh,
And I was like,
jeez.
this is right out of some 50s movie.
Yeah. They smoke in other countries, right in the emergency
Right there
room.
in the-
When we were in Jordan, that's what they did. Just
Oh, no.
whole hospital, you see a haze of smoke for the whole thing.
That's wild, dude.
Yeah.
So you do that one, right? LA trauma, then what happened? Then what do you do?
Then I got chopped to ANGLICO officially.
Okay.
But going with your ooze story, I got a funny one that was a cadaver lab. So we were practicing chest tubes, and generally there's a proper spot, but since everyone wanted to put one in from start to finish,
Right.
everybody had a rib.
Okay.
So there's usually a spot that you put it, but everybody took a rib, and so this cadaver was just rippled with holes on the sides. And this brand new ensign nurse, he was there to get training on the nurse side of things, and he's practicing intubation. So he used the scope, dropped the tube down in the lungs, and he's practicing, and so we're like, okay, cool, sir, you do it, do you? And my buddy, one of my corpsman buddies, he had just de-gowned, de-face masked, and everything. And so I'm still have my face mask down, have my gowns on, have my gloves. And for whatever reason, that brand new nurse wanted to bag that thing. And so when he bagged it, there was just cadaver juices just hit all over my mask, all over my gown. And my buddy's there without no mask, no gown. It's just on his face,
Oh,
on his
God.
uniform. And I just look at him because I can see the juices on my end. And I was just laughing. I was just like, looked at him like, what? And then there comes the vomit.
Oh.
As soon as I made that noise, he just couldn't stop. And I just there.
I probably wouldn't have been able to even hold it that long.
I was just there laughing so hard because he had it. And I was just like, oh, is that some on your lip? Just egging him on. And he's just in the sink puking.
Yeah, don't breathe. It's gonna go up your nose.
God, dude.
Yeah, that.
He was very upset with that nurse. But, he was just... I knew what the nurse was doing, but it was funny because he didn't realize that these juices would come out of all the holes in the ribs.
That's so gross. I wonder how people that work in the hospital like that, like nurses and stuff that work around cadavers or emergency room where people are dying all the time, like how they look at death differently, or if they do look at death differently than like the average person, because they know the process. Like, okay, you're dead. Now these people are going to come in and clean your body off, and then they're going to take you down to the morgue, and then they're going to chop you open and do your autopsy. It seems like it's more, I don't know. They have the peek behind the curtain.
Clinical, maybe. I know an emergency room doctor, and she's an ER doctor, and she works in Phoenix sometimes and Idaho and stuff, one of those kind of things. But sometimes she was telling a story to my mom, who got related to me, about being afraid to go anywhere because she works the emergency room trauma. So these people went to go get some heavy cream because they were making cookies and they were in a terrible car accident, or they were going to 7-Eleven, to get beer, and they were and so or they got hit by a car or whatever. So she was telling kind of like from that perspective, like sometimes it made her afraid to go places because she's like, these people were just going on their normal day.
Yeah, and it just suddenly it's over.
Yeah, hey dude, I'm gonna run down to 7-Eleven and get some water,
I thought about
for tomorrow.
You ever do that where you're like driving down the road and you're like, what's the last thing I said to someone? Like if I was to get killed right now, what's the last thing I said to different people? And I'm like, that's kind of a dick move. I need to say what's up to them before something happens. I'll think about that though, because at any moment, like you don't know, you don't wake up in the morning going, well, today's the day I'm gonna die. No, it's just
you're absolutely right. So there was my daughter graduated from hair cutting beautician school or whatever, cosmetology school, about 10 years ago or whatever. And I came down she graduated down in Miramar at the school down there. It doesn't exist anymore. But anyways, the director came and introduced herself. And I was a little bit busy. We had just driven down from Oregon. I had a bunch of things going on. And I was a little dismissive towards her. I was polite, but I wasn't as polite as I should have been.
Yeah.
So I think about that. Like, that's the last time that I've ever spoken to that person. And you want to find them. You want to find them and say, hey, I know you don't remember me, but I was a little dismissive when you introduced yourself.
I swear I'm a good person.
Yeah.
I want you to die knowing that I'm not a dickhead.
Or I just don't
cut my hair.
I don't want that on my back anymore, I don't want that on my back. And I don't even know her. I never knew her name. It was a chance 5-minute encounter, and I was just not as cordial as I should have been.
It seems like in a medical profession job though, you see not only how fragile life is, one, but also how how capable the human body is also to survive trauma. Because I'm sure you've seen, especially working at the LA Trauma Center, I mean, someone taking 5 shots to the chest, the fact that they even lived long enough to make it to the hospital is kind of wild.
That they're even in a condition that you'll
even work on them. Yeah,
there's dudes that got thrown out of windshields and because they were drunk driving, and they were fine. They just got restrained to the bed until they weren't drunk and hostile anymore, and they went home. Like, I was like, dude, you just got thrown from a windshield. Like, the body is amazing.
Yeah, and you need to be very grateful, because whatever mission God's got for you, you haven't accomplished it yet, because He didn't kill you. He didn't let you die.
Seriously,
going through a windshield, geez, that would suck.
Yeah, he must have hit whatever he hit hard.
I've been lucky. I've never really been in a major car accident. I've only been in one when I was a little kid. Knock on wood. Yeah, everybody's knocking on wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like a fender bender. I've only ever been in like little taps.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy.
And then sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead, man.
I was going to say one of the things like I really learned from LA Trauma is how difficult a police officer's job really is, because some of the things you'd see, like one of the things, like sometimes I'll still smell it, and it's just, you freak out a little bit because you're like, ugh. And they have to deal with some seriously bad people. And one of them was just like, there's a story. It's a story that like really kind of like stuck with me. It really like, man, if I could see that daughter, man, like she deserves one, like just because what she did. And I'm not a type of person that does that, but I'm really chill and laid back. But this daughter, essentially, her mom was a quadriplegic, so paralyzed pretty much from the neck down. She's getting paid by the state of California to do hospice care to her mom, and she didn't. And so what happened was, if you don't do proper rolling for somebody that's in a bed all the time, you have to roll, change the sheets properly, you'll get an ulcer. And so she got an ulcer. The ulcer got infected. Then the entire body got infected with septic. She went septic. And so daughter still didn't bring her in. And so when a lady that's paralyzed from the neck down starts feeling excruciating pain, it's too late. And so this was my second death, actually, at that hospital. Was So they asked me, like, hey, Navy guy, you want to help me change the sheets? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And they're like, they didn't tell me that. They're like, you want a mask? I was like, oh, I'm good. It's just sheets. I mean, I smelled somebody that went to the bathroom on themselves before. Well, when we rolled this lady, it just punched you in the nose, and everybody immediately, even with masks, started gagging, because what had happened was this lady, her skin had pretty much rotted off from the back of her shoulder blades to the back of her knee. And so you saw all of her vertebrae, you saw her hips, you saw like what was supposed to be her butt hole, and everything had rotted away. Her lady parts were just rotted away.
God,
you could just see like the spot where it's supposed to be from anatomy, and her daughter let her do that.
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
got to be criminal.
oh yeah, the cops escorted her out there because the doctors were very pissed. The doctors were pissed, and
I can't imagine the struggle it is to take care of like a family member that's, you know, like in that state, you know. Yeah. But it can't be easy, you know. Just like having a child that's like has like, you know, mental learning disabilities or whatever, like that can't be easy.
No, the challenge is there.
But man, to
neglect it
to where someone's flesh is rotting off onto their sheets, like they're becoming part of their bed, basically. Like
yeah, and so like they already brought her in when everything was gone, and at that point, she was on her way out. So the doctors made her comfortable at that point because, I mean, they tried everything they could. They did a bang up job, but yeah.
I mean, what can you do? I mean, jeez.
Try antibiotics via IV is what they did, and that didn't work.
You're right, though, man.
You're too far gone at that point.
That's the kind of stuff that cops see, you know, on a daily, and it's just like, how do you do it, you know?
And I just like looked at that daughter, and she's just sitting there like, oh, poor me. I'm like, you're going to jail, bitch. I was like, this is fraud because you're getting money.
Yeah.
This is neglect, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other charges. And the police had to not only see the mom when they came and escorted her out of the hospital, but just deal with that daughter. And I was just like, man, I gave him a fist bump. Hey, man, kudos to you, because I'm like royally upset right now because this is this girl's mom.
That's got to be the toughest part of a law enforcement officer's, you know, time.
Yeah.
Is not being emotionally involved, you know.
Yeah.
Like, I little things, you know, you get emotionally involved, and then afterwards you're like, I really didn't need to be. But they've got to stay cool.
Yeah.
You know, and probably the good ones are the ones that are able to say, I'm not going to be emotionally involved.
Yeah.
X and X equals Y, and this is what we're doing.
Well, and like, you know, you remember Shipton, Captain Shipton?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up.
Big Papa Pump.
He's I think he's doing his FTO, his field training officer. He's like out of police academy and doing stuff. He's a police officer now. He's like working to be a police officer. He's also still in the reserves. He went over to 3rd ANGLICO, but now he's with some kind of new reserve, like advisor detachment, some kind of weird advisor team. He talks about it in the last podcast that he was on. I'll look it up here in a second, but he was talking about how you know, you're training, you're constantly training. Like he said, he's more nervous to be a cop out there than he was being like introduced to his platoon as a battery commander or as a battery platoon commander.
Really? Because
it's like the stakes are so high, man. Every day as a cop, you're going out and violating people's rights, and if you do something wrong, like that's literally you're detaining people, which is a violation of their, you know, basic constitutional rights. Now that's justified with the correct reasoning.
Yeah.
However, if you do something wrong, then you're fucked, man. And you know, I'm like, dude, good on you, man. Like, I used to want to be a cop. I used to think that getting out and being a cop would be a really good like option, but it's just they get treated like everything is looked at, you know.
A creative lawyer,
Monday morning quarterback.
Everyone's got a phone on you.
Yep.
Yeah, and which is fine. I think a lot of them don't care if they're videotaped and stuff like that. A lot of them don't mind.
As long as they're doing everything right, they shouldn't matter.
But you don't know. how it can be perceived, you know.
Yeah.
Perception is reality sometimes, but
So-
yeah, I got mad respect for law enforcement.
Yeah,
You got
because
to
you
deal
know
with that every day.
you walk up to that car and you don't know what's on the other side.
Yep.
I mean, that's why I always, if I get pulled over, which once in a while I will, but luckily they thank me. They're like, hey man, you did everything right. Who taught you that actually? Because I turn on the cab light so that way they can see in the car.
Yep.
Have my hands up where they can see me.
Yep.
And if I have a
Yeah.
passenger, I'm like, hey, just do you mind putting your hands on the
Put
dash?
your hands on the dash, spread your fingers.
Because I'm always carrying. So I was like, hey, and first thing, excuse me, officer, I want to let you know I'm concealed carrying, or Maine's a constitutional carry state. I'm constitutionally carrying. And they're like, hey, I appreciate that. And I was like, it's right here. I'm going to tap it with my elbow. And I hit it with my elbow. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, I appreciate that, bro. And hey,
I mean, you got to let them know. You know, that's one of those things where it's like, that is the best thing that you can do is be like, I got a gun and it's right over here. I don't want you to think I'm,
Yeah.
you know, because then everyone's aware. You know, there's no question. You know?
yeah. So if you pop it open and get your ID, they're like, wait, what is that?
I mean, I still get nervous when I get pulled over. You know,
I do
I'm
too.
still like, fuck. Like, you know, no one likes getting pulled over or something like that.
Well,
But
that's the fear of the unknown. Like, what did I do?
Because he's nervous because he doesn't know what's in there. You're nervous because, I mean, you don't want to take it.
cops catch a
yeah,
bad
especially
rap.
the cost of them now.
Oh, I know. First time I got pulled over in California was $500, almost $600.
Man, I got hooked up big time in Arizona. You ever go to the Shady Dell?
I don't even know what that is.
Shady Dell it's in Bisbee, Arizona. It's down south. It's got a bunch of classic campers. It's a hotel, but it's classic campers.
Okay.
And they have like, you know, the Lucille Ball camper, the Elvis camper. They have a little diner. They have like 57 Cadillac. A tiki diner. They got a
Dang.
boat that you can rent the boat, and you know, it's a hotel.
Huh.
It's really cool. So anyway, we checked it out. As you come out of there, it's a steep hill that's 45 miles an hour because it's an old copper mining area or something. But when you crest the hill, you're going 50. You crest the hill. Now it's a steep hill going down, but it's still 45. But now you're
You're going like 80.
Yeah.
So I crest the hill. I let off the gas. I'm talking, messing with radio. I look down. I'm going 85. Like, ooh. And there's a highway patrol coming the other direction.
Oh, got him.
So I'm like, I pull over at the next like little outlet, you know, where it'll make it safe for him to.
Yeah.
I know he's turning around. I
Yeah.
can kind of see him start to slow down. So I'm like, and he's turning around. I'm the guy he's getting. But he wrote me for 10 over. So I think he wrote me for like 65.
Mhm.
Same thing. He's like, do you have a firearm in the vehicle? Yes, sir. You know, I have my. And then he goes, oh, you have California plates. You need to show me your concealed carry permit. Roger that. But, you know, you do the whole thing. Put your fingers up. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. No. And he was a kid, too. He was a young guy. Like, you could tell it's like his early stages of his career.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir. No, sir. No, sir. And then, all right, I'm going to reach into my door and I'm going to get the concealed, my
Yeah.
wallet's in the door and the concealed carry permit. You know, reach over. Here it is.
Where's your concealed carry through? Through California?
Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not valid here.
Nothing's valid. in
Have you tried to
California.
get a concealed carry here in California?
No. No, I haven't.
Do you remember? Well, I won't say his name because he's still in. There was one of the captains on my team. He got a concealed carry. San Diego County Sheriff.
Really?
Yeah.
What was his
It took him over a
justification?
year to get
I was
it.
going to say, I think I had to take some.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome. They send you your renewal documents.
He had
Man's
to
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
he had to take a class. I
As
think he had to go down and do an
constitutional
interview with them, and then they had him write his reasoning.
Yeah.
And he's like, this was right after that ISIS hit list came out. Remember that had all the military members like
Was he on it?
address? No, he wasn't.
Oh.
But he's like, hey, ISIS is targeting military members here in the United States. That's justification enough that I should have a firearm to be able to protect myself and my family.
Right.
And they were like, all right, we can't say no. So he's the only person I know that I've ever met that has gotten a
Yeah, he's a legend.
concealed carry
Yeah.
permit. And this was in
I'm not worthy.
2000. This was in 2016 or 2017. So it was before. I think they lost a case. I think somebody here, San Diego County, I think lost a case about how they issue permits. So this was before even that it
Huh.
became even easier.
Wow.
It took them over a year to get it, though. I think it took them a little while.
Yeah, you gotta be consistent. Whoever quits first loses.
I did know a guy that is on that list, though. A guy I was
Really?
on the Mew with. He was the assistant air officer for the BLT. He's a backseater for F-18. He's a Wizzo, and came back. and he was supposed to deploy again. And I think he was like I think at his squadron they made him like the social media guy or whatever, you know. And I think he was kind of into it anyway. And he was always posting shit, and they using social media found his personal information and put him on that ISIS hit list with, you know, and it had your name, address, like all this shit on it. He was in the process of selling his house, and now he had to put in the what's that called? The stuff that you have
the MLS?
The
stuff you have to disclose?
Yeah, the disclosure. And the disclosures that it was part of an ISIS hit list. The address was listed on an ISIS hit list. And then he was trying to get the government to pay for his house because he was like, this is bullshit because I was told I had to be the social media dude for the squadron. Which
And
is how
I can't sell my house.
And now I can't sell my house without telling someone like, oh, by the way, it was on an ISIS hit list. Would you buy a house that was on an ISIS hit list?
No.
Even if it was like a couple years old?
No. I wouldn't.
I like being.
Sorry, wrong address, bro. I
What-
swear.
What? How about some shitty luck though, right? Getting ready to like sell your house and
you're the Facebook guy. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you're on the kill list too.
We're gonna behead you on Facebook now.
yeah,
That would suck.
that would suck. Do you guys carry all the time?
Not in California.
Not
I
in
left all my guns
California.
back in Maine.
Yeah. In Maine you did though?
Yeah.
So, and you said it's a constitutional carry state. What do you mean by that? You don't need a permit?
Maine and New Hampshire, you can carry without a permit. Yeah.
Concealed carry?
Concealed carry without a permit. And then even if you're out of state resident in the state of Maine, unless they change it, you're allowed to carry. You're just not allowed to have one in the chamber, from my understanding.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Nice.
So, the way our founding fathers intended.
Yeah.
North Carolina
America.
North Carolina is an open carry state.
Nice.
So it was weird when I was stationed out there. Every once in a while, you'd see someone open carrying at like Sam's Club or something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was in the military, so I'm like, whatever, man. Like, I don't see the point in open carrying. I think it's kind of I don't think you're really gaining anything from open carrying. You know, you're just telling someone that maybe getting ready to do something like, hey, I need to shoot this dude first.
Or not to do it.
But
Maybe that's the open carry concept.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I just don't. Whatever. If you want to open carry, go for it. That's on you. Personally, I think it does more harm than good because there's a lot of people that aren't used to firearms, and I think it makes them more nervous and it causes more issues than anything. I think concealed carry is better because it makes people feel more comfortable. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, and which is
of feelings,
which sounds stupid. It sounds stupid, but I think, hey, if you want to open carry, go for it. I'm not saying that anybody should stop that. But if I was to carry daily, I would not open carry. I would conceal carry.
Well, I wouldn't either, but for that reason, I don't want people to know.
Exactly.
But the thought process is if enough people open carry, that's a deterrent.
Yeah.
It's like, you know how you got the volunteer police?
What is that, a well-armed society? Is a pleasant society
That's
or
right.
something like that? Or a well-behaved society?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. If
Yeah.
you think the guy might... There was there's a book called The Cowboy, the Mountie, and the Samurai, and why gun control won't work in America in comparison to what they've done in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bunch of societal things and stuff. But in there, they showed the Florida became an open carry state. And, you know, there was a bunch of hogmanay about, oh, there's going to be gun crime out the ears.
Mm-hmm.
Well, within the first month of them becoming an open carry state, the gun crime was reduced by 30%. So 1% a day. That was just the first month. Then it continued to go down.
Heck yeah.
And then they had an uptick in robberies. And they're like, what's going on? Well, it was people leaving the airport. So what the criminals did was they follow people from the rental car lot
Oh, really?
out of the airport, force them off, and rob them, whatever they do, you know, rob them on the side of the road or whatever, knowing that those people didn't have a firearm because they had just come from the airport.
That
What?
sucks.
That's weird.
So then the cops figured that out, and they're like, okay, well, we can solve that problem.
Yeah.
You know, we change our pattern.
Dang.
But yeah, it was 1% a day for the first month, and it continued to drop, but I don't remember the stats enough to repeat them. But.
See, Maine actually went to the #1 safest state in the country. I think it was like 3 years after one of the state senators, Eric Brakey, proposed it, got it approved as a constitutional carry state, and #1 state in the country. One of the safest state in the country now.
Yep.
I mean, knock on wood, somebody's going to try to plot against us.
Yeah,
now,
somebody will try to ruin that, or they'll just make
It is a rural state, too, though, which probably
It
helps.
is. It's very
I've never been to Maine, but from my
outdoorsy.
understanding, it's like not. It's not like San Diego or LA. It's not.
And it's a big state with hunters, so everybody has like a shotgun at least anyway.
Yeah. I knew a
It makes it
kid
better.
when I was in high school. There's a kid. Yeah, I grew up in Indiana, or I lived in Indiana for high school and stuff like that. Hunting is a huge thing, and some kids would go hunting before school,
Yeah.
and then go to school. And one of my buddies had his shotgun in his truck in the window or something like that. In the rack. And came to school, parked, and then went to class. And someone called the cops, and he got I don't know if he got suspended or expelled. He was like a year or two past me, but I was like, what? Like, what the fuck, man? And he had gone hunting that morning before he went to school, and then, but now obviously you can't do that. But he got charged for having a gun on school property.
You get charged for going like this. You made the gun thing. You did the.
They can't do any of that now in school. My kid, like. At school you can't have any kind of weapons like on your clothing, like pictured on your clothing. You can't make the little finger guns. You can't. A kid got in trouble because he like bit his Pop-Tart into like a little gun.
Yeah.
And I think he got his parents called about it.
Damn.
Like
That's the only way I eat them.
Yeah.
gotta make the little pistol first.
Sissification of America, because those people are the people who are nervous when they see somebody in Sam's Club with a gun. They're the people that are.
They're the Karens of the world, because then they turn around and go. And what I was saying before, like it fucks with people when you're open carrying. What I mean by that is that like now you have people that are ignorant of the law or of what a firearm is or how it can be utilized, calling the cops, going, "Hey, I got a guy here in Sam's Club with a gun," blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's just it becomes a hassle. It's like, why am I?
It becomes a hassle because people can't mind their own business.
That's
mind
part
your
of
own
it.
business, man.
What happens is they put their feelings into where thoughts should be.
Well,
let's think of well-rounded thoughts. What's the Constitution say? What's the laws say?
We
And then
also
they're
take for granted.
I feel I don't like them. They're scary.
Yeah.
We
Well,
take
that's
for
a great
granted.
line,
We take
though.
for granted the amount of like exposure we have to weapons, though. I remember my old neighbor when I lived in Oceanside. She was like, "Yeah, I've never even seen a gun in person." And I'm like, "Really?" So I went back in the bedroom and I brought out my 9mm, and I was like, I unloaded it and handed it to her, and she's just like, "Nope," and set it down on the ground.
Well,
and was like, "I don't even
part
want
of
to
the
touch
problem.
it." She was like, "It makes me nervous. It just sitting there on the table that it's in here," and I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
It's not going to jump up and
Weirdo.
bite you.
I know.
You know what's scarier? Driving your car.
Statistically, yes.
Yeah. But I'm going to use that line. They put their feelings where their thoughts should be.
Well, so
that's a great line.
little bit actually. My degree's in government. I almost after SERE, I had a serious heart-to-heart with my family and my wife about getting out and running for U.S. representative in 2020 for District 1 in Maine.
Nice.
And honestly,
Yeah,
I
you
decided
got
to
my
stay
vote.
in because I talked to a lot of dudes, and the Maine legislator like, "You'll always be here, man. Go do your career, go serve your country, and I'll always be here."
Get your retirement and then go
And so
go fleece the
well,
American
well,
tax.
that's
you
why I
oughta
was like, I don't
see-
know how politicky you want, but I can talk it all day because that's my degree's in.
You ought to see if there's any kind of internship opportunities though to work as like work in some kind of politician's office. That Matt Ketting came on. He was a recon Marine, and while he was he might have been in the Wounded Warrior Battalion when he was doing it though. But he went and got sent. I think he went to Hawaii and worked in the legislature for like 6 months.
So I have a couple friends, just by getting involved and hate seeing the direction our country's getting. So I got involved, a lot of behind the scenes because I'm in. But so I know people who are one of the advisors on Governor Sununu. He's a Republican governor of New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
He's a personal advisor. And same with Susan Collins, senator for state of Maine, Republican.
Yeah.
So I know these people. And they've offered me like, "Hey, you want to come work for us?" And I was like, "I'd love to, but at a later time."
Yeah, let get your retirement first and then go work for them.
If someone
like
wanted,
you said, that'll still be there because you'll continue to make the connections.
Yeah.
Plus, that's great. ANGLICO makes great Americans.
I think military members
you
of
take
the
an oath to support and defend it, so you might as well
know what the hell you're talking
more
about.
members
what
of the
it says,
military
yeah.
should get involved in politics because people in the military are exposed to not only one of the most cultural or like diverse, like race like
Absolutely.
diversity within like the U.S. Job market, whatever you want to say. The military has a pretty diverse group of people. It's weird. Combat arms is mostly white people. I will say that. I think you see less minorities in combat arms jobs for whatever reasons. Like, if you think about like your supply guys or cooks and stuff like that, there's way more minorities in that. And I see that maybe as guys are just trying to get an education, get out of, whatever. They want to join the military, but they don't necessarily want to go be combat arms. Anyway, I digress. But what I'm getting at is the military itself is diverse and race-wise, but it's also diverse because you get to meet people from all over the country. Like, where are you from originally?
Maine.
So you're from Maine originally. Yeah. I grew up in Tennessee, and I also grew up in Indiana. You're from New Mexico originally, but then you've become a Southern California.
But yeah, you got people from Chicago.
Yeah, you meet, and your fire team may be 4 guys from 4 different parts of the country, and how you look at something like me, someone that grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee in the South, may look at something differently than someone like you that came from Maine, just because of our backgrounds and how we grew up. And
it also helps just the military as a general because, like, there's more than one way to solve a problem. And I think this way and somebody else thinks this way. And, that diversity is really great. And so, personally, I've learned a lot from it.
It's not forced diversity. That's the problem with forced diversity is it's actually detrimental when it's forced. Like the complaint they had about the coronavirus team. Oh, there wasn't enough minorities on it. I don't care who's on it. I want the smartest
experience.
people.
Yeah, I want experience and capability.
Yeah, it's not like you have to have a certain percentage by it's what it is.
Yeah.
But the military is just, it is what it is. You end up with what you end up with.
But what I was getting at is I think that exposure to, the broad amount or the major amount of cultures that are, in the U.S. makes you a better person to be in the government as a politician because you have a better understanding of not only your area. I mean, you know about Maine, but now you also know what people in Southern California are dealing with.
You go to other countries and you see how, say, the Jordanians and internal problems are like, hey, man, I noticed this in Afghanistan and I called it 10 years ago that this was going to happen again. And so people in the military, I think you get a good firsthand experience. You see these things, and you're like, I think this might be a problem. I mean, 10 years later, boom, I called it.
How did working on the border shape your viewpoint of how border security and like illegal immigration across the border? That had to have shaped it in some way.
It definitely did, and it really kind of just showed how underfunded they were at the time, to the point where they were using sensors that were dermo from the military in Vietnam, that they're using these things. And it really also gave me a big BS detector, like a big BS red flag, like, oh, they're brutalizing these people on the border. I gave them a bag lunch and a Gatorade and a water because I believe, like, hey, I don't know when this guy ate. He's still a person.
Yeah, you're still treating them like humans.
Here's your water. Here's your Gatorade. Get these calories, electrolytes, fluids in you, and we're going to send you home, man, because, hey, just do it the right way. But that's my personal
No, you're
belief.
absolutely right. I was visiting my sister. Her husband is a retired Border Patrol agent. And we're outside by the fire pit, and we're just hanging out, me and him. And he gets a phone call from another agent who's taking a college class. I think he's a retired agent also, and he's in college. And his professor is beating him up, the whole liberal lefty thing. And so my brother-in-law is telling him how to articulate the reality of the situation, not just this professor's perspective. So, and it was really interesting. And so I can't go into all the details because I can't remember half of them. We were drinking at the time, but I know that I was totally into it.
Yeah.
And then when he's like, hey, man, I got to go. My brother-in-law's here. We're just hanging out. I'm like, no. Just keep talking to him because I want to hear what you're talking about. This is more interesting than our conversation.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I would think that the Border Patrol, from what I saw, is a far more professional, organization because, one, they're under their microscope. People are always judging them. Like, the military, we're professional, but, hey, behind the scenes, we're partying like rock stars at the barracks and having a good time. The Border Patrol, they know not to flag themselves. Yeah. And so, so I got to watch in a CP, like a big control room. They did a Border Patrol Special Operations raid, and they kicked in the doors of a house that they thought carried a tunnel, ended up in a tunnel. Finds out it was a human trafficking ring, and there was just, these women that got the shit kicked out of him, chained to like radiators, and like he was so bad that the Border Patrol people on the CP, they turned off the TV because it was just disgusting of like
Really?
how these people were being treated. And even seeing that, those Border Patrol agents, they didn't kick the crap out of the dudes responsible. They did what they were supposed to do and brought them back. And, you know, because they know, like, hey, if we mess up, it's going to be wildfire.
And it becomes defense for those guys to get released, you know,
Yeah,
to get
and
their
it
charges
makes it worse
dropped.
for the next guy.
Yeah.
You know, the next agent that's working now, it's like the SOP at the drill field. One guy drowned some guys in the river, and now the rest of us have to, you know, do hygiene inspection or something. It just makes it worse, and they
so-
know. That's what bugs me about popular media. The Border Patrol in all the movies are always portrayed as these hick, racist, white.
It's mostly
you know,
Hispanic people. The Border Patrol,
Yeah,
I
the
think, is a
majority
majority
is
Hispanic.
And it's a great opportunity for them because, you know, hey, one, you're serving your country because, hey, you're proud to be here. I met a few of them that were first generation Mexican Americans, and they're
Yeah.
like, it's a great opportunity. I love this country. And I was like, man, come give me a hug, man.
Yeah, I know.
And he's just like, it works
my
in
kind
my
of American.
benefit because I already speak Spanish, and you have to speak Spanish.
Yeah,
to,
you learn it in the academy.
And
Yeah.
so he's like, it was a win-win. Got to serve my country for something I truly believe in. And he's like, I did it the right way, and I'd hate to see people cheat the system.
Well, see, guys like that understand it, man. You know, it's like people come to the U.S. because they see the U.S. as like a better place to live, and that whole thing is based off of our rule of law. And it's
Yeah.
like if we let that slip, and we're like, hey, we'll just let in whoever we want, come on across, just, you know, whatever, then you're introducing into this, you know, social system that we have here the stuff that they were trying to escape from. You know,
Exactly. You make it the way it was. When my wife came here as a child, I think she was 6 the first time they came to the States, you were not allowed to get any kind of assistance. So you had to be totally self-sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
But they came legally. You know, they came and did the documents and got their green cards and stuff. But her dad was part of the Bracero program. We hired a bunch of people out of Mexico to fill. That's kind of how we got people in the fields, is the Bracero program. So mostly it was Americans that worked the fields, but they all went off to World War II. So we needed people, so they hired the Braceros to come up, and that lasted into I think the late 60s or 70s. But he was a Bracero, so he came on that program, guest worker type deal.
Nice.
But they had to be 100% self-sufficient. They had to, every 6 months, they had to report their location to INS, and they couldn't get food stamps, housing assistance, nothing. You had to be 100% on your own. And that's why they were so successful. They weren't trapped by the welfare state, which, you know, traps people into dependency. They worked and worked and worked, and, you know, made their way up, and
Nice.
and that's why she's so hard on illegal immigration, because they all came legally and made their way.
Yeah. They spent the time, did all that stuff.
Yeah, and now you can get assistance and things like that, and it traps people.
Yeah.
You know, my son was on unemployment for like 2 months or 4 paychecks unemployment. At one point, after he got out of the Marine Corps, he got a job, and then that job went away or whatever. And the second check that he got, he says, "I'm not doing this anymore, man." And I was like, "Oh, well, you know, it's okay. That you paid into it. That's, you know." And he's like, "Nope, I'm not doing it. This stuff makes you lazy."
Yeah.
Even though he's looking for work and he's doing other things, he goes, "This makes you lazy because you know you're gonna survive." So he turned off his unemployment and spent the next 6 months looking for work. But
Sometimes you get paid more than what you were working.
I know.
Yeah, right now that's like a thing that they're trying to say, like, if we don't get people back to work soon, or if we keep passing like bills, I don't know, the $600 on top of like their normal unemployment that a lot of people are getting is put them above what they were making before. And now you're hearing about a lot of people that are mad that their employers are making them, are like, hey, you can come back to work. I got the loan from the federal government, so I can
Right.
pay you. And they're like, we don't want to come back to work. We're going to make less if we do
Making
that.
$1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Making $52,000 a year.
Yeah, it's weird, man.
Well, that and it's harmful to people.
Yeah.
People have to have a drive. You know, if you give them too much,
I'll tell you what,
it's
man.
harmful.
My parents got divorced. I think I had like a normal, probably lower middle class kind of growing up. up until my parents got divorced. My dad was in the Army. He was an Army reservist. He was active duty, and then he went to the reserves. But then he did his job during the week as a GS employee, so he worked at his reserve center in his regular clothes. Yeah. 1 week in a month, he put on his uniform and did the exact same job at his reserve center. Nice. So that's always government employee. My mom, high school graduate, mother of 3 kids, stay-at-home mom kind of deal. Not really stay-at-home. She worked for a while, then got injured in the hospital as a nurse's assistant. Something about moving a patient from... There's like a sling that you use to move a patient from one thing to another. Apparently that person wasn't on it right, and she caught him, and it tore ligaments in her shoulder or something like that. So anyway, parents got divorced when I was in middle school, and single mom, 3 kids, fighting dad for child support and stuff like that. And we went from like lower middle class to like being poor, man. And I just remember food stamps, being embarrassed about using food stamps and getting like the free meals at school and stuff like that. And as I got older, I was just like, dude, fuck this, man. Like, I don't want people to look at me like I can't take care of myself. Like, I need the government to help me out. And I'll tell you what, even junior Marine, I came in the Marine Corps and I had a kid while I was in MOS school. My kid was born. And I never once went on WIC. I never once got food stamps. I never did anything like that. But PFC Kramer, and his new bride and new baby lived in base housing, and we didn't have anything. We had our beds. We had 2 couches. I had saved some money up from MCT and boot camp and stuff, and I bought us a couch. We had a shitty little box TV. I had a shitty little box TV, and we were driving her Celica, her little Toyota Celica for like 3 years until I was a sergeant, because I could have went on WIC and got, milk and cheese and all the shit that they give you. I could have got on food stamps, but I was like, dude, I don't need that stuff. Like, the paycheck I'm getting is enough for me to get what I need.
Yep. And
if I want something else, I'll save it and buy it. And I don't want the assistance from the government. And some people look at that as, they're like, that's stupid. If anybody earns it, or if anybody deserves it, you do because you're in the military and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, no, man, because I think if you're depending on the government at all for anything and you don't need it, it's a crutch. It's a fucking crutch. And all it does is it causes more people to spend outside of their means. So it's like, well, my milk and cheese is taken care of, so I'm a Lance Corporal now. I can afford this Dodge Charger.
Well, I did counseling at.
I was also 22 when I came in, so my thought process was a little different than like the average 18-year-old.
Yeah, you were a little smarter. I did financial counseling for Navy Relief, and there's always a story. I know this guy that didn't get money from Navy Relief because he needed it. I never did I see when you fill out the financial worksheet, never did I see someone that was not living extremely out of their means.
Yeah.
And they're always like, oh, I don't have milk for the children. Well, okay, you have 4 ESPN channels. Your cable bill is $350 a month.
Yeah.
You have 2 brand new cars. At $600 a month period, your paycheck is $650 a payday. Mm-hmm. And so when you try to tell them, hey, dude, you're gonna have to cut. These are things you don't need. Oh, we have to have that, So I never did see a person that was actually, and I'm kind of hard-headed because
we think about it differently though. We look at it differently.
Well, when I came in, I was a PFC with 2 kids living in town. 1 paycheck paid the rent for the apartment. And the next paycheck, that was food, gas, haircuts, that stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was I think I made $450 a payday, and the rent was $457 or $4 something. So,
I mean, and this isn't me shaming, like talking about this isn't me shaming people. There's people that need it and stuff like that. But I think that we definitely encourage people to go above and beyond what they need, and then they get, like you said, they get sucked into the system, and they want to be part. You become part of the system.
Well, it should be a hand up, not a handout.
Yeah.
So a hand up is a lady gets divorced, her husband's not paying, she's got the kid, she can't make the mortgage.
Let's get you on your feet.
Yeah, let's get you on your feet. Let's get you going. There's a real good program down here, Solutions for Change. Mm-hmm. Me and my wife did some like Christmas dinners and do different things with them, but that's their thing. They take families. There's not a lot of druggies or psycho people involved. They're homeless people, but normally they're families, and they take them through the entire life course, what should be taught in high school, how to balance your checkbook, and then they put them in apartments, and then they pay part of their income. They get them jobs. They pay part of their income for the apartment, and the goal is, I think they have 24 months once they get in that part of the program to be on their own.
Nice.
And so they work them through that. You know, like, hey, 10% of your income is going to your savings. You know, but I can't get cable. Life sucks. I guess you're gonna have to read a book.
Yeah.
You'll get smarter.
I do. I think that's cool because actually similar program that the state of Maine did as an entire state. It's long gone due to change of governor, but Governor LePage, what he did was because he grew up poor. He grew up from nursing home, and grew up poor, and so he wanted to help to break the circle of poverty. So his whole thing was hand ups, not handouts. And so one of his biggest things that actually saved a lot of money, believe it or not, from the state of Maine because people didn't want to do it. And so he had created a rainy day fund, seriously, from the state of Maine, millions of dollars, because people didn't want to meet the criteria. So they're just like, sorry, man. So the criteria was you had to be working a job that didn't supplement your family's income to get assistance,
Right.
volunteering, or pursuing some sort of higher education, because what he wanted you to do is either get out there working, better yourself, either college or trade school, or he wanted you giving back to the community.
Right.
And believe it or not, those three things, you had to do one out of them, cut a lot of people off because they didn't want to do it.
Well, that's like they keep. Yeah. I just saw a headline about it like a week ago. How they're renewing or Donald Trump might be signing something. I don't know what it is, but what it is people. They're removing people from food stamps that are single, that have no dependents, have no medical issues. They're in good health. They're single and they have no dependents, and they're removing them from food stamps. There's like 60,000 or maybe 600,000. It's either like 60 or 600,000. It might be 600,000 people, but they're removing these people. And there's like this big outrage. Like, I can't believe. Look at them. They're trying to keep people hungry and blah blah blah. And I'm like, bro, this is a person living by themselves, no dependents at all, and they have to do the same thing where they have to be looking for work. Like, you can still receive benefits if you're looking for work, but if you're not looking for work, if then fuck you, man. You're in good health. It's not like you're disabled. Like, you're like, well, I'm missing a leg or something like that, and I need money, and you're not giving it to me. It's like, I'm in good health. No one else is depending on me. Like,
my sister-in-law runs a restaurant in my hometown, or not my hometown, where I went to high school. She can't get help. Yeah. Because she's like this running the place. She can't get help because they would rather stay home and make $500 a week on welfare than go to work and make, $400 a week or $600 a week or whatever.
Yeah, the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
And be confined to actually working.
Yeah, well, I could get $500 for free, or I could go work.
And I got Section 8 housing, and I got, and there is a place for that. I'm not saying
I know people back home that are like that, where it's better to not work because if they start working, then they're like, well, I'll lose my benefits. You hear them say that, like, I lose my benefits,
I hear
and it's
that all
like,
the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mean you're going to become self-sustaining?
Something.
Like,
which is a way to suppress people, like, hey, they're going to rather not work and take a pay cut and not thrive to something greater that they could be because they're happy with what they're at. They're not ever going to break out of that circle, which is what I talk about, is like, these things are great tools to get people out, and the people that need them sometimes can't get them because, hey,
some bum is taking them.
And so what this is I believe that it suppresses people because they're like, hey, they're satisfied. They're never going to get that job that working at a restaurant, which, hey, maybe you get bumped up to manager of the restaurant and you just work your way up and you eventually won't need that because you'll be making bank.
Or maybe you meet somebody that is a photographer and you go into, there's...
Yeah.
But if they
networking is key. I don't think people understand the power of networking. Yeah, of having a solid network and stuff like that.
The thing with that, though, is that goes back to the conspiracy theory. If we can keep them dumb and give them somebody to hate. You always got to give them somebody to hate. So give them somebody to hate and keep them stupid. Then they're easy to control. Yeah. Well, you go to your third world countries, that's what they do. They give them somebody to hate and they keep them dumb. They're easy to control that way. Hey, it was that guy. Everybody get that guy.
Yeah, the tribalist effect.
Yeah.
You're either with us or against us.
Yeah.
Right now, everyone is piling on that. Did you guys see that that video of that chick in New York Central Park telling that black dude there was some black dude that was out there, and she was out there walking her dog, and she had her dog off the leash, and I guess this was like a leash area.
Right.
And this dude is out there just bird watching, like this African American dude just out there. He's an avid bird watcher apparently, and he's like, "Hey, can you put your dog on the leash? Like you're supposed to have your dog on the leash." Mm-hmm. And the lady said something to him,
and calls the cops.
and then he said something back. I think he told her again to put her dog on the leash, and obviously, there could be more to it. This just happened, so who knows what's going to come out, but. She was like, I'm going to call the cops and tell them an African-American man is harassing me and threatening me and blah, blah, blah. And, dude, the whole time, she's, like, holding her dog by the collar, like, choking her dog because she's not, like, thinking about the dog. She's doing all this other stuff and, like, yelling at him and getting on the phone. You hear her call 911, like, he's threatening me, and starts crying. And, yeah, it's just...
See, those people ruin it for the rest of us.
Exactly.
I hate that. I hate something like that because that's what people... They put that up and they're like, see, the white people should see that this keeps happening. And it's like, dude, that is not the norm.
No.
That's
the outlier.
That is
it's like
hardcore
the guy
outlier.
You know, the guy the Navy Federal story. There was always a guy, I tried to get money and I couldn't. That's the outlier.
Yeah.
You know, the outlier is...
Just like the African-American dude last week that shot that... there was like an old woman at the cemetery. I don't know if you guys heard about this. This was I think it was like last week. It started shooting at an old man and woman, I believe. You know, white lady and dude. And the cops got called and then got into a shootout with the cops, and the cops ended up killing them. But it's like, I didn't look at that like, well, that's a race thing. And, you know, that's how all black people like hate white people. You know, that's the outlier. You gotta, our society is, we're ready to be mad at somebody. It's just crazy.
Maybe we're the outliers, you know, in the military because we never had.
Because we get along with everyone.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, we used to have dark green, light green. That was the way you describe people was dark green, you know, dark green Marine, light green Marine. And then of course people got feelings and stuff and, but now you have to use a descriptor, you know, and that's not racist. That's the other thing. Everything's racist now, you know. You have a white cup. Racist? No, it's not racist. It's not racist to say that, you know, Asian people have a different shaped eye than Westerners. It's not racist. It's a fact. You know, people from, you know.
When you cry wolf about everything, when you say everything's racism, then everyone's just going to quit listening.
It devalues when something really happens.
You know what is strange, Joe?
Something serious.
Episode 18, I had Staff Sergeant Quentin Brown on. He was on here again with Levi Slife. He was a JTAC at, he was just a fire support man at 5th Anglico, but then he became a JTAC, and then he went to MARSOC as a JTAC. And he was saying that when he was over at MARSOC, he was in like a team room or something, getting ready for something. And they were getting dressed, and one of the dudes put his foot up on the bench without a shoe on, and he had a swastika tattooed on top of his foot. Damn. It was basically like and he's a black dude. He's a black guy. Oh, and he was basically like a, you see this kind of deal? Like you were saying, he was kind of like, yeah, that's legit. Like, I want you to know that I have this on my foot. And I'm like, really? Like, and this is like a CSO, an actual operator.
Damn.
And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, dude. He's like, you would... I can't say that I've ever seen like I want to say 12 years is a long time, but I can't ever remember someone being like blatantly like racist towards somebody in the military. You may have probably as a sergeant major and a first sergeant, you probably run into incidents like that. But me as a guy dealing with the guys that I worked around, I guess it's just all about the people you surround yourself with too.
It's super rare. When I was in 3-9 back in the 80s, there was a group called the Family, and it was all the black Marines in the battalion. Well, not all of them obviously, but it was a large number of the black Marines in the battalion, and they were a black power group, and they wouldn't have got caught, but they all went and got like suits on and took a picture, and it was like a platoon picture, you know, with like 80 guys. So it was all the black guys in the battalion in this, or not all, but a lot of them in this group, and it was the Family, and they were like thug gangster wannabe. Some of them were really gangsters, you know. So there was a black power group, and they did things like jump the white Marines, you know, coming from the E Club and things like that. You know?
Really?
Damn.
Yeah, that was their thing, and they were also doing other bad things. But then on the other hand, there was a group of we were in Honduras, as a matter of fact, and we were drinking on the army base, and there was a group of guys from State Platoon. So my Gunny Fogg, big black dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like kind of like my idol. I was go to him for everything. I was a sergeant at the time. I think I just picked up sergeant, and I was like, maybe I know I was a corporal then, but I was like, hey, you know, everything. This dude knew everything.
Yeah.
And one of the guys made a comment to me like, hey, you know, I know you're friends with Gunny and everything, but you know, he can't be around here or something. And later on, they were playing music, and the black dudes were dancing on the dance floor, and some of the guys got up on the table and started making dance around like monkeys.
Oh man, really?
And that led back to the battalion back in the States. There was a big fight, and they started putting sledgehammers into each other's
In the
door.
States?
Yeah,
Damn.
back when we got back.
Oh,
So these two groups.
RBE's fighting.
Yeah, the group was smaller. The white. like,
Well, when was
prejudice
this?
group.
Was this in the 90s?
It was 89.
80s and so I've always been told that like the 80s and 90s there was way more drug use and like more gang like kind of affiliations in the military.
That probably was part of the gang thing because that was the big Blood Crips time.
Well, there was also a white supremacist group out in Fallbrook too, from what I understand, and they were like they had members in like Mateo and those areas.
I heard that story, but I never saw any of it.
Yeah.
That was my only. There was that incident and one other where I had a black staff sergeant that was my platoon sergeant that favored the black Marines.
Yeah.
But even then, I kind of got where he was. His theory was each one teach one.
Yeah.
So he came from probably somewhere where black people were treated poorly, and he was like, each black person in charge should assist another younger black man in being successful.
Now we just call that the mentorship program.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a mentor program.
Because you can relate to where he's coming from. You can
Yeah,
mentor
that's a
him,
good
build
thing.
him up
Yeah.
into like, hey, this is what I experienced. Here's how to avoid it. So
The concept is great. I think just the execution, like in anything, his execution wasn't as strong as it could have been.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he didn't treat other Marines that differently, but only the dark green Marines went to meritorious boards. Only they got to be on the color guard. So it was definitely it was blatantly obvious,
Yeah.
you know. But he didn't stop any of the rest of us from being successful,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
But
he was
those
just
are
trying
the
to
only two.
mentor people to be a little bit stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those are the
I
only
mean, it
two.
happens. We do it too. White people do it too. You know.
Yeah.
I'm sure they did.
I don't know of anyone personally that have ever like, well, I'm only going to put the white dudes on the board, you know. But
I
whatever.
did have to turn away when I was in Oregon. I had to turn away a request for Juneteenth, so we would put a color guard on Juneteenth celebration.
I don't know what is that.
Juneteenth is I think it has to do. I can't remember the details, but it's Emancipation Proclamation
Oh, okay.
signing.
Oh yeah.
So they have a parade, Juneteenth.
In Oregon.
Yeah, it's a big black community thing now, but it used to be an everybody thing. It used to be an all-American thing, the Emancipation Proclamation.
Really,
Juneteenth
I've never
thing.
even heard of that.
But they would only allow us to put a color guard in the parade if all the members were dark green. So I had to say, I can't do it, man. You're
Yeah.
getting our color guard, which is 2 females, because they were the perfect height and they were really good at rifle
Drill,
manual.
yeah.
And then 2 males, 1 black, 1 Hispanic, and the 2 females were white. And I'm like, that's what you're getting. You're getting. What
And they
the
said
more-
no.
Yeah, they said no. If you can't give us all
Jeez.
black, then we.
That's stupid. That's. I mean, that's.
But those
just-
are those are the outliers.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times?
Onesies and twosies ruin it for everyone. You
Yes, those are the outliers.
Did you see, dude, Memorial Day weekend this weekend, right? And New York Times ran an opinion piece this weekend about how it's just like the question was, why is the military still embracing white supremacy? That was the headline for this article that they ran this weekend. And it
think
was
that-
based off of, it was a bunch of ridiculous shit, but a lot of it was based off of how there's some bases still named after Confederate generals or whatever. And because of that, we're obviously all embracing white supremacy. We're all white supremacists.
Well, that
and-
doesn't have anything to do with white supremacy, but they don't know any better.
I just thought it was so out of touch with
Well, they
like,
allowed people to be buried at Arlington National Cemetery, which was actually
yeah,
Robert E. Lee's estate.
Oh, was it?
yeah,
Yeah.
But
But they don't know that
the
because they don't know the
Confederacy,
history.
that whole thing isn't about white supremacy at all. You know, it's like the Army named all their helicopters after Indian tribes.
Yeah.
As a
Honoring
respect to honor the tribes.
Yeah.
You know, but people take that and run with it.
Well, what do you think about the since we're talking about people honoring somebody, what do you think about there's like it's going around, it's becoming a bigger deal right now because of the woke crowd or whoever. There's a couple gravestones in one of the veteran cemeteries. I don't know which one it is, but it's a national veteran cemetery. But there's a couple gravestones that have swastikas on them because they're Germans that were POWs here in the U.S. that died while they were here, and their gravestone was made accordingly. Like, you know, he died for his country and the Fuhrer and whatever. What do you think about that being in a VA-ran veteran cemetery? Because there's calls right now from people to have those headstones removed.
I think they should leave it alone.
Yeah?
Leave it alone. Why are you going to mess with stuff that's, you know... I got to take a leak, though.
I mean, it's no different
Go ahead.
if we died for our country, we get a grave. They died for their country, and, you know...
Well, look at how our graves are treated in, like, Normandy and places like that, you know?
The Marines buried the leader, the Japanese commander, I think it was Guadalcanal, Saipan. They buried him with military honors.
They
Trees
really?
flagged, the whole thing.
Yeah?
Overseas, our graves are actually, like... People are assigned to take care of them in some certain countries, and, like, they... bring flowers on Memorial Day. It's actually, I think it was Denmark or something.
Yeah.
They bring flowers. They're assigned a soldier to honor them. And hey, at one point we were their enemies. And
I think a lot of people just don't like the fact that it's got a swastika and it says he died for the Fuhrer on it. I think those are the two. But to me, I'm like, man, if you're gonna take the gravestones down, then why not just repatriate their body back to their family?
Yeah.
You know,
I can see the argument both ways, but you know, it's like
I'm not bothered by it. You know, I also didn't serve in World War II, and honestly, that'd be the kind of person I'd like to hear their opinion, like a World War II veteran. Yeah. Because if we should listen to anybody, it'd probably be one of those guys.
I agree, because they're gonna be the ones that are like, oh, they shouldn't even be in America, because
some of them
will probably think that they should be sent back to Germany. I don't know. I mean, World War II guys are a different breed. But
There's so much stuff that people get like offended about nowadays, and it's like we have to come out and talk about it, because if you don't address it, then it's like you're part of the problem. Like, you know, I don't know, I call it the woke brigade, but the woke, you know, just people being upset to be upset about stuff.
Yeah, and you know, they're letting their feelings get in charge of like logical thinking, and it's crazy. They're ready to do a knee-jerk reaction based off feelings instead of taking a second, thinking like, okay, what is good logic and policy, especially as somebody in office?
Yeah.
What's good logic and policy? What's in accordance with our laws, our Constitution? But no, they're letting knee-jerk reactions to do things that are borderline, like, against the Bill of Rights. And it's crazy that they're allowing this to go on because of feelings.
For sure.
I love Ben Shapiro. Like, facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, that's my guy.
A lot of people don't like him because he talks real fast, and the dude is super smart.
I like the way he breaks things down. Mike Slater's another good one. He's San Diego. Mm-hmm. He breaks things down, and I like that because it's not just a surface story, you know?
You also have to, I will say, I listen to Ben Shapiro as well, but I don't necessarily, I listen to him, and I like a lot of his viewpoints, but I kind of like watching Al Jazeera News. I don't really pay attention when he starts talking about religious stuff, because he's a Orthodox Jew, which is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, he's very proud of his beliefs.
But he's very like, he's obviously any kind of coverage he has on like Israel and stuff like that is biased towards that because he's a Jewish person. So if he goes through and talks about stuff like that, I don't mind hearing it, because he does talk about stuff you don't hear about here in the U.S. about stuff that's happening overseas, like in Israel. But I do go and verify what he's talking about. Like one time he talked about how the Israelis attacked because Palestinians did this attack, but then he didn't mention that attack was preceded by another Israeli attack. Like it was like a...
Well, yeah, but Israel's been fighting for their
life
forever.
And like I said, I agree with a lot of the stuff that he says, but I mean, at least he's honest about his bias. You know, he's like, I'm a right-wing political commentator. That's who I am.
Well, that's good, you know, having an opinion.
Yeah.
And then saying, hey, this is what I think. What do you think? What's your 2 cents?
Yeah.
And here's what gets me in trouble sometimes, because I like to ask people, How did you come about that? How did you come up with that perception?
And they get angry. They don't want a dialogue.
Well, they take it offensively, like I'm saying, how'd you come up with that stupid idea?
Retard.
Yeah. And when in reality, I'm really curious. Like, okay, I think something, abortion. I think abortion is very bad, and somebody else thinks it's okay or it's in between. Okay, how did you come to that belief? What are the steps that got you there? Because there might be something I'm missing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I went from here to here, religious or whatever, however I got there.
That's why a lot of people are very against any kind of removal of videos and stuff like YouTube. It's like, let all the information get out there and let the people decide based off of like the available information.
Just like the pandemic
It becomes
Yes.
pandemic.
Whether you believe it or not, you can't find it anymore.
Yeah, when it keeps getting erased, you're like, maybe they're right.
Well, that's
like
the problem.
It gives you the
When you-
what if.
When you silence other people, then you remove the conversation. I want to have a conversation. I want to know why you think what you think.
No, for sure.
Try to convince me. Your weapon is dirty. Change my mind.
Well, let's.
Where's the armorers?
We're at over 2 hours now. We're almost 2 hours and 20 minutes. So let's shift gears because before we I don't know, are you on a time limit or anything?
No.
Before we finish, I do want you to talk about SERE. Like, so you were a SERE school instructor.
Yep, in Maine.
So what's the what's the difference between SERE school in Maine and SERE school on the West Coast? Where's the one on the West Coast? Or is there more than? Is there a bunch of different SERE schools?
There's a bunch of different ones, but the Navy and Marine Corps go to the one in Maine or the one in San Diego on North Island, Coronado.
Yeah.
And so the Navy, the only difference really is just the location.
Yeah.
They're the same meat and potatoes. It's run by the same hierarchy of chain of command. Just one station in the east, one station in the west, and so, I mean, you can imagine the students going through Maine in the wintertime aren't enjoying it as much as the students going to San Diego. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
That's like the seals that go through in the winter.
Oh, buds.
Yeah, there's kind of a thing about that. Like if you go in the summer, you're going to be cold and miserable. But if you go in the winter and you're in
the water is freezing cold in the wintertime.
I bet.
Yeah. Freezing cold.
And
that's why you gotta have a wetsuit on.
Somewhere else.
Still surfing without a wetsuit, man.
Well, yeah, it's summertime now. Nice. You can now, but not in like November, December. You're not going to.
I don't know.
Which is like, imagine being a dude going through buds and being in the ocean for hours a day in December.
No opportunity to get out.
60 degrees, 58 degree water.
Yeah.
Well, you do have an opportunity, but it causes a ding.
So you say in Maine it might be a little more difficult?
They both aren't fun, but personally, I would think that Maine has a lot more mountainous terrain. We're north of the Appalachian Trail, so it's more mountainous terrains. It's the weather can turn at the drop of a hat, but that's just Maine in a nutshell. Anyway, the saying growing up is if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, the kids they don't get to come inside in the winter, so up north it gets -40 and. They're truly doing the S and SERE and surviving.
Yeah.
So you went through SERE here in California, and did that drive your like hey, I want to go be an instructor? Like I thought that was interesting.
It definitely did. So we talked about it earlier. ANGLICO sent me because we were trying to build up our resume of our corpsmen so they didn't get snatched, and so then I deployed on the Special Purpose MAGTF, and I got attached to one of the FICs in Jordan, and. When I was out there in Jordan, I came up for orders. And so I kind of looked, and I was like, I have to do a shore command. So I was like, I really don't want to go to a hospital or a clinic. So I messaged the detailer. I was like, hey, is there any SERE school instructor billets? And he's like, yeah, there is actually. And he was a corpsman too. The SERE instructor detailer was a corpsman. So I messaged him. It was a chief. And I was like, hey, chief, wondering if there's any corpsman instructor billets. He's like, absolutely. East or west? I was like, east. He's like, you know Maine's cold, right? And I was like, I'm from Maine, chief. He's like, very well. You got these orders.
Oh, that's cool.
And so as simple as that. And they had criteria. You had to be an E5 at least. So, because Navy instructors, you have to be an E5. So
yeah,
met all the criteria and is smooth sailing ever since.
What kind of training do you have to do as an instructor?
You have to go to like a Navy instructor.
Yeah.
Like the actual, hey, you're a Navy instructor. And then you go to the schoolhouse, and then if you haven't went through the course, you go through the course. And then they have a training program already set up. So you spend, I think it's 3 months or 90 days. You have to complete all the QIT. There's like a checklist that you have to do and take a board and a written test. And if you pass all those, you're an instructor. And then from there, you're still learning. So then you're shadowing under people the whole time. So it's a great setup, and it's all for the student benefit, you know?
So all people talk about are like, oh man, when you go, they're gonna punch you in the face, and you're gonna get put in a cage, and blah 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 blah. Like, how long is the actual like course? Like, what's the length of the course?
So the Navy ones are 12 days.
Okay.
If you go through MARSOC or any of the Air Force ones, the Army, they're 3 weeks.
Okay. What was it? What you expected? Like being an instructor? Like people think you have to be some kind of sadistic dude to be able to go in and be an instructor in SERE school and like lock up people in little prison cages and stuff like that. Like,
no, I mean everybody's all laid back, just like myself. We all just really professional and good at what we do because hey, these are service members.
Yeah,
they're gonna go out and do their job, and you just want to give them the best training you can because that's your job at that time.
Yeah, you should go be a drill instructor for the Navy with that attitude.
The funny thing about that was when I was up for orders, the detailer called me. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking at your resume. Do you want to be a recruit division commander and be a Navy equivalent of a drill instructor?" And I was like, honestly, it was HM1 who's my detailer. I was like, honestly, HM1, I'm a SERE instructor right now. I want to go a little bit without yelling at someone.
Yeah, for sure. Plus, dude, Great Lakes. You don't want to go up to Great Lakes in Chicago.
Yeah, well, they started a program that because I guess they're short drill instructors for the Navy, and so meritoriously promote you to E6.
Oh, really? Just to go be a DI or
RDC. Yeah.
RDC.
So I was like, I need a break. I've been going ham on all these kids for a while. I just want to go back to the fleet, maybe do a deployment or two if possible, and we'll talk.
Did you do a specific role as an instructor? Like, did you have like a certain part of the course that you focused on instructing?
Yep.
And
so
if you
SERE's
can talk
broken
about that.
down. I can. So SERE's broken down into 4 parts: so survive, evade, resist, escape.
Mm-hmm.
I was a resistance instructor.
Okay.
And so, kind of keeping short is just you teach students to resist the enemy, and so we teach techniques if you go through the course and
like resist as in like booby traps, or resist in like interrogations kind of deal?
They just so you don't rat out your brothers.
I guess,
you know, so you don't rat out your brothers because they're out there fighting the fight, and you don't want to do that.
We were talking before we started recording about how you've had the opportunity to meet a lot of like Vietnam POWs, former POWs. What was it like to meet someone that's actually been, like in a cage for a couple years as a POW?
Well, the crazy thing is you would never have known until you start talking to them.
Yeah.
And it was cool because the main military museum, they had the reunion for the POW, and there's over 100 POWs from Vietnam, and a lot of them were cellmates. And so they're talking like, yeah, I remember one day he got tortured real bad, and I had to nurse him back to health. And the main military museum has, I haven't been to the Smithsonian, but arguably the reviews of it they have a better POW exhibit than the Smithsonian.
Really?
And he actually has a 1x1, so the exact replica of a cell of the Hanoi Hilton.
Dude.
And so he allowed one of the POWs to go sit in the cell one day, and the guy started having some emotions, a little bit of flashbacks, and he said the owner or the curator of the museum is a good friend of mine, Lee Homestead. So if you ever go, ask for Lee. He'll tell him I sent you. But the POW was sitting in the cell, and he started rubbing the bottom by his foot. He started rubbing it, and rubbing the chair, the concrete slab that he was sitting on. And so later, they went out to lunch and let him cool down because he was having a moment. Understandably.
Yeah.
And so he's like, hey, you mind if I ask you something? He's like, yeah, sure, yeah, what's up? He's like, when you were in the cell earlier, can I ask you why you kept rubbing something with your left hand while you were sitting by your leg? He's like, yeah, had a little bit of a moment, and back when I was actually in the Hanoi Hilton, where I would rub there was a Catholic cross that somebody before me had carved, And so he said he'd always rub his fingers up and down it to know that God was still with him.
Oh, that's
man.
cool.
And so after that, Lee Homestead, to make sure that that was as real as possible, he got the POW and he's like, where was it? And he made sure there was a cross right there, right exactly where it was in that gentleman's cell.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's a tearjerker, man.
Dude.
It's
You know, that's emotion.
What a different world like those dudes were in. You know?
He's got artifacts from. It's incredible. The POW. He's even got like skivvy shorts that they were given and issued in the Hanoi Hilton and everything like that. And so he's got jumpsuits from Halle Burton, who was a gentleman that Lee Homestead shared a story with me. And so I hope I don't offend the family or anything, but the Vietnamese because he was from the South and they had this belief that all Southerners were racist, so they kicked the snot out of this African American POW, and Halle Burton had said he wanted a cellmate. He wanted a cellmate. Prayed to God, and he got a cellmate, and is African American. And so the story was, I don't know if it's true, but he had a little bit of like reservations because he hadn't been exposed to that many African Americans. But what he did was he nursed that gentleman back to health, and so side by side, one speech, the African American gentleman is like, he saved my life, and then he said he saved my soul. And so it's stories like that. You're just like, man, these dudes are larger than life. And here I am sitting eating lunch and pizza with them at the So the SERE school is a great experience to meet these people and just know like their stories are dying every day with them, and you don't get to really share it, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, that stuff's got to be recorded and put down. You know.
Yeah, I'd love to have some like World War II or Korean War or like Vietnam vets on, more of them on the podcast, just because it's unless the story's told and recorded, like once they go, it's a gone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I know guys that don't want to come on because they just don't, they don't want to talk about their time in the military. Even now, like GWAT guys, and it's like I get it, and I totally. Hey, that's you, man. It's your story. It's your story to tell. I'm not trying to, I don't want to push you. I will say, however, though, that I think you owe it to your family and the rest of people that may be looking at the military to tell your story so that the reality of the situation of what actually happens is out there. That so people can actually understand, maybe not, they can understand what you did in the military. And that's for, I think anybody that was ever in the military should tell the stories that they know to their families, because at least tell their families, because someone needs to, live and breathe these stories and tells and carry them on, because that should be family history, and for me to be able to record a lot of guys' stories, like, your story and your story, it's forever recorded. It's on the internet, it's forever now. So,
you can avoid like the history revisionist type stuff.
Yeah.
Because you get the actual perspective.
From the people that were on the ground,
Yeah. The first Navy pilot, the first black Navy pilot, was shot down in Korea, in Corsair. His partner was a Southerner, his wingman. Crashed his plane, which is a big no-no. You don't crash your plane. Yeah, your buddy got shot down. Life is hard, but he crashed his plane to go try to rescue his buddy on the side of the mountain.
Wow.
It's crazy, man. The stuff dudes have done, will do, it's just, I don't know. We live, we all stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before us, like.
I know. And then we get to take a bow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they say the hard guys create soft times, and soft times create soft guys, and soft guys create hard times, and so.
Yeah.
It's just a saying. It's just
I try to.
Some hard guys.
Yeah.
We take it for granted, the institutional knowledge that's been passed on over the 200 and however many years that the Marine Corps has been around, that the Army's been around, and being an advisor, that was something, going and working with the Afghan Army, it was something you had to keep in mind. It's like, man, these dudes, this Army is like 5 years old. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? They're used to working in tribes and da-da-da-da-da. Like, of course they're not as good as we are. Like when people would judge them, like, look, they can't clear a house or they can't do this. And it's like, well, no shit.
Well, that's like teaching your kids how to read.
Yeah.
You teach your kids how to read, and you're like, this is an A, this is a B, this is a C. What's this? An A, Daddy. What's this? A B. What's this? A C. And then you go back to the A. What's this? I don't know. What are you, stupid?
Yeah.
Well, no, they're not stupid. You know what the letters are.
You've just seen the letter a million times over your.
It's their first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be. When we were with the Georgians in Afghanistan, they're not bad, but they're not very good.
Yeah.
But then again,
I never worked with them. I only ever saw them at Leatherneck.
Oh yeah, their defensive positions were awesome.
Yeah.
You go in their Sanger towers, and they had distances to tree lines carved in the 2x6.
Mm-hmm.
They had everything ready. It was dangerous. There's grenades hanging there. They weren't as. It was ripe for an accident. But so in other areas they weren't as good.
Yeah.
But like you say, the Afghans they're new to this.
Mm-hmm.
They gotta learn their own way too. They gotta. There's gonna be standout guys in the Afghan army that are their heroes that they look to for inspiration for. Maybe who knows right now the Taliban's taken back over, so maybe not.
That's part of our problem with dealing with parts of the world like that is we have a Western mentality.
Yeah.
We can rebuild Germany after the war and Japan. The Japanese are super hardworking people.
Mm-hmm.
The Germans wanted to go back to normal life.
Yeah.
The Middle East is a different culture.
Yeah.
And tribalism.
Tribalism's huge.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing when they're like, oh, he bad guy. Well, maybe he is a bad guy, and maybe not. Maybe you want his building, where he fixes tires.
Or his farm, or he's another opium farmer that you want out of the cut. Yeah.
So, yeah, you have to, but we don't get it, I don't think.
Back to SERE, if anybody is out there listening that is planning to go to SERE, or they may know that they're going, or they maybe just want to go, what kind of advice would you give somebody that hasn't gone yet and that maybe, they're on their way?
Just be positive, because if it's one of those things you're like, man, Sergeant Major has me filling sandbags, this fucking sucks. It's going to suck way worse. But if you're like, hell yeah, we're getting paid to fill sandbags, your sandbags filling isn't going to suck as bad. So,
So find the silver lining.
Find the silver lining and accept the training. Because if you're just like, oh, I can't wait to get over this school, you're not going to get the full benefit.
Yeah.
Do people fail?
No, it's not a fail course. Because everybody fails. This is your first time, so you're not going to be an expert by any means.
Yeah.
But hey,
it's weird though. It's like it's your first time. It's like, well, yeah, you're not in captivity very often. Like you got to train to learn how to be a captive.
Yeah.
It's
Seriously.
crazy.
And so, hey, it's just accept it. It's gonna have its highs and lows, and if you just ride the wave, you're gonna do all right.
I've heard a lot of guys that have gone to SERE school. I never went myself. I only did SERE Bravo, I think, or whatever it was, to the advisor training, but I never did like a full spectrum course. But I've heard guys that have gone through it. They're all like, dude, it sucked. It was horrible, but it was probably some of the best training I've ever gotten.
Everyone says it's the best training you never want to do again, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a sick individual, because when I went, I wanted to go through the course in Maine when I got selected to be an instructor, but they're like, dude, you already went. We really need instructors right now, so we're just going to put you through the instructor training starting immediately. That's
pretty wise. I was talking to Master Ray about things that we wished we'd have done.
Mm-hmm.
One of them was swim training at lunch. What's his name? Merritt. Merritt was offering swim survival training at lunch.
Merritt?
Always too busy. Yeah, he was a...
Lucas?
No, I know who he was. I didn't know he was a swim instructor.
He was a McQuist.
Yeah, he was a McQuist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That kid was a fish.
Come out here
he was
and
good.
I'll teach you, and so you know how it is when you're in the head shed. You're always too busy. I got this thing at 1300. I can't be exhausted. When you go swim with those guys, you go back to your office. You're useless for like 4 hours. You're just sitting there.
Well, it's because you're the old man now. You're trying to hang out with all the junior guys.
Exactly, and then you got to try to. You don't learn till later that you don't have to be as good as they are.
Yeah.
You just have to survive.
Yeah.
But but it's wise that you say, I wouldn't want to go to that again, because those are things you regret not doing later. Like, oh man, I should have took him up, or I should have took Rangel up on the martial arts training when he was doing it at lunch.
And that's one thing Chief Dorn actually told me, along with my dad. He's just like, dude, you can never get untrained on something. You've experienced, you might forget things, but you
Right.
went through the experience and you might recall. And if you have an old study book, you can get back that knowledge. So that was kind of Chief Doran's, like, that was my mentality. It's like, if you can go to a school, go to it.
Yeah.
It's only going to make
Yeah.
you better. It's going to make you an asset.
That's
Yeah.
why he was such a genius. You know, he saved my dad's life. Chief
Really?
Doran.
Really?
So I went home on leave. Quick, I'll shorten it because I know we've been on here for a while.
No, you're good.
I went home on leave, and I dropped my wife off with her sister. They live in the same town. And I went to my dad's house, like 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And we're going to go shooting. And he's down. He's hurting. He's old. He's in his 70s. He's like, yeah, I just got to sleep a little bit longer, you know. He's in his chair, you know.
Mhm.
All right, cool. So I go shoot in the back where he lives at. We could shoot right there out the kitchen door.
Nice.
So I just go pick a gun, get ammo, and shoot. And about noon, I'm like, damn, he's still down. Let me go check on him. So I go back, and he's like, yeah, I just can't get it going today. I'm just tired. I just can't. Just give me a little bit more time, you know.
Yeah.
So I make a quesadilla, go and shoot some more, and he had lots of ammo, so, you know, I was shooting all his. It's like shooting Uncle Sam's bullets. You're like, hey, they're free.
Shoot
Yeah.
one in each hand.
Yep. I think I'll try this. And so I go back about 1600. So it's been all day. He's
Oh,
been
wow.
down, right? I go back, and I'm like, you know, where's your blood pressure machine? You got one of them portable blood pressure machines. So his breathing's real shallow. I check his blood pressure, and it was something crazy, like you're gonna die blood pressure. Like, I don't know. Instead of 120/80, it was like 60/20 or something crazy. So I called Chief.
Yeah.
I called him on the cell phone. I'm like, hey, I got, my dad, I'm talking. He's down. He's been down all day. He's got no juice. And he's like, get him to the hospital now. Call the ambulance. He goes, hang up with me. Call the ambulance right now. He's dying on you. And I had already given him, I shortened the story already. I'd given him all the symptoms and this and
Yeah.
that. He goes, he's dying on you. Get him to them. So hung up, got the ambulance to come out there, took him to the hospital, and they're like, another half hour, he would have died on you.
Damn, man.
And I was like, and so I called Chief back on the drive because they had to ambulatory him from our small town to the next bigger town where they actually had a real hospital.
What was wrong with him? Like a clogged artery or something?
I don't remember what the problem was. Oh, oxygen. So he's only got one lung.
Oh, cause,
Yeah,
he
the other one
lost
got
it
shot out in
Viet-
Vietnam, so he had a lumbectomy, something like that. Anyways, it went out on the exit wound. They had to cut it off. All this nonsense. So he only got one lung, 2 packs of Marlboros a day for years.
Jeez, on one lung.
And he would hump your dick in the dirt. You
Yeah.
go deer hunting with the guy. He'd be up and down the hills with one. I was 16 years old, just exhausted. Anyways,
Wow.
he didn't get enough. He couldn't get enough oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
So his oxygen level, I guess it's supposed to be like 100 or whatever. It's supposed to be 90, and it was like 12. Or he was dying. His brain was dying from lack of oxygen. His
Wow.
body, and but yeah, Chief was like, I gave him the symptoms over the phone, and he gave me, okay, check this, and I was like, all right, check those things. He's like, get him to the hospital now.
He was one of the smartest corpsmen that's really made an impact on my career. It's like, I learned so much from him in so little time because he was not only super intelligent like that, but he was a great teacher.
Yeah,
He was humble and he was a teacher. He's like, okay, so let's sit down and cover knees today. And
right.
a different day, be like, let's do ankles and then things like that. Were you there at ANGLICO when he saved that dude's life on an airplane, some civilian?
Yeah, with the orange juice and all that.
Yeah, on the way back from the Philippines or something crazy.
Yeah.
He saved the dude's life from he filtered away. Yeah.
What?
Stuff like that. He's just so.
So he was there when I first got to Anglico, but like we said before, I showed up on Friday and then Monday I checked out and started a mute workup. So I didn't really get to interact with him too much. He saved someone's life on a plane though.
Yeah, he got called up for I think it was like a 3-month training or short deployment to the Philippines, and on the return trip back, somebody had an emergency on the airplane. They're like, "Is there any doctors?" No doctors rogered up. Are there any EMTs, nurses, paramedics? Nobody rogered up. And so he raised his hand. He's like, "Hey,
Fuck!
I'm
Time to shine. Here we
got
go."
it.
I have medical training. I'm a Navy corpsman. I provider for the Navy, kind of."
Yeah, IDC.
There's an emergency, so he briefly explained what an IDC does, and they're like, "We need you." And so yeah, he said he was doing like some Hollywood stuff where he's hovering the aisle and created like this funnel so the guy could hold like orange juice because he didn't have any way to administer like blood sugar stuff.
Yeah.
What was wrong with him? Do you know? Do you remember?
They met him at the tarmac with a fire crash team, and I can't remember the exact diagnosis, but
So whatever it was legitimate, huh?
it was legitimate. And it turns out the guy's wife was a doctor, but she was just so distraught that her husband was going up. So
No kidding.
like he like saved that dude, and
That's awesome.
like some congressman I found out or something about it, and he was getting like he got written up for like some. I think
Meritorious mask.
civilian award. Yeah, he got NJP'd for practicing medicine in the civilian world.
Yeah, who the hell do you think you are?
It's no HM1. No, I'm just kidding. He did some awesome. He's like I couldn't tell it the way it really happened because it would sound like it happened in a movie. I was like, dang.
Yeah.
like-
And I don't remember the details because you're all excited because he's so humble. He doesn't tell you the story, like, and then he's just like, yeah, so I gave the dude some orange juice and he lived.
And then someone else comes out and they're like, wait,
Yeah,
and
no.
like gives like the actual
He
details.
made an IV out of his own hair. You
Fucking
know?
MacGyver over here.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess there was like a Navy dentist, so the dentist was just giving the guy oxygen while Chief was going to work, and it was just, I was like, man.
That's awesome though. That's cool. Well, that's a good way to round off. Unless there's anything else you want to kind of talk about before you get off here. I appreciate
Not really. Just great catching up. I mean, when this guy retired, everybody was crying at his ceremony because that's how much the Marines loved him.
Well, that's appreciated. That's for sure.
I remember I was part of the flag detail. It was fun. Our Brits were surprised when you whipped out the 6-shooter and gave it to your wife.
I thought it was awesome.
They're like, whoa, this dude just handed the pistol over?
Yeah,
It's America, baby.
I'll never forget that speech.
They're
I
like,
know
did
you're
he-
not the type of lady that likes flowers and chocolates, so I got you this.
You're like,
Wah!
you're my little pistol, so I got you a pistol.
And it wasn't just a little 38 special. It was just like a hand cannon. I was like,
Yeah, 45 long coat.
yeah, it was a
John
hand
Wayne
cannon.
Pulled it
We're
out of
like,
his cargo pocket.
Yeah, that was pulling my trousers down the whole time.
Yeah.
We had the 148 battery guys there planning Burmese chase. And they're just like, what? Like, yeah, this is America, bro.
Saw the
You
Marines
guys want to
like,
go shoot?
or wipe the tears away. Like, man, Sergeant Major just kept it gangster.
Sorry, Major. How long were you at Anglico?
Almost 6 years.
That's crazy. That's a long time.
Yeah, well, I worked the scam, the system.
Did you want to stay at Anglico the whole time? Or were you hoping to go?
No,
Because I know there's a whole hierarchy of sergeant
there's
majors.
a hierarchy, and those guys, it was a combination of things, but I wanted to stay at Anglico. I thought we were going to get to go back to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that we were going to get to go back and fight one more time, and I didn't want to end up
Missing a deployment.
or on at a battalion where everybody else deployed. Plus, the people keep you around. You're like, okay, there's young Marines that are like, you're not done with them.
Yeah.
You know, what was a pocket doc? Gosh, what's her name? Little tiny doc.
Chief Thomas. Or
No.
H1 Thomas?
No.
No, but
The one before her, the
Yes.
first female that was there.
gosh darn it, she's like a really close friend. I can't.
I mean,
think
not
of her name.
Thomas. Brooks. H1
Brooks, yes,
She's
Chief
Chief Brooks, yeah.
Yeah, like, so there was that whole drug deal for her to come over, and, you know, you're like, okay, we can get this one more step farther, you know, because the promotion board, one of the chiefs on the promotion board for chief had been at Anglico.
Really?
So that was kind of, you know, hey, we got to.
I'll be honest, I didn't like having the female corpsman. I didn't like having her there, not because of her or anything, but it was obvious that the company wouldn't let her go out to the field because I don't know if it was because she was a female, but she never went to she never did any of the field training stuff.
No,
it was
she
like
went to the field, yeah.
It was like she was only a corpsman back at the company.
She was the
From what I saw, from what I saw,
Yeah, from your perspective,
we never
probably
had
so.
her. She never came out to the field with us. When we needed a corpsman, they'd have to source a corpsman from somewhere else rather than send her out to the field. And I was just always like, dude, if she's out here, man, send her out to, like, I don't care if she's a female, whatever.
Yeah,
But
no, that
come to the
wasn't-
fucking
that wasn't
field.
the reason that she didn't end up going.
'Cause she was like the Johnny on the spot for like
And I know that's not her call
she was
either. This
the
isn't
LPO,
a,
so she took care of all the corpsmen, which she
Yeah.
did a great job. So I mean, we were grateful, and so I mean, we brought her spy rigging one time with Alpha, and I think she had a great time.
Oh, she
how
was
can you
awesome.
not?
Yeah.
So, some people did not like doing spy rig, but
I'd
I
always
thought
be
it
the
was
guy
always
on the
fun.
bottom, so if everybody's talking smack earlier, I wouldn't put my arms out, so it would just spin.
Yeah.
I was always at the top, so I'm like, whatever, man.
I didn't want nobody throwing up on me.
Yeah, I would have my
Yeah.
arms out. You have to kind of
Yeah.
balance it, figure it out.
But yeah, to your point, yeah, that wasn't the reason she didn't go with you. She went to the field. She went to the field a bunch. She went to all over stuff.
She actually got attached for the MEB for a while.
Yeah.
I remember that.
But she was
she's super busy with that.
Chief Doran's right hand.
Yeah.
So
I think that was probably mostly, but it to the guy. I know the guys on the team saw it
Yeah.
and they were like, "Dude," because our corpsman, because we always had to have another corpsman come out so that our corpsman could shoot as well,
right.
right? Because we had to have a safety corpsman, and it was just like we could never. I think again, I'm not calling her. I don't even remember the name, but
Yeah.
I'm not calling her out or anything. But I just, if the units that are doing that are bringing females into them, but then they're not actually integrating them. They're trying to hold them at the headquarters or not letting them go out and do the stuff because they're females or whatever, because they're trying to protect them. I think they're only hurting them. It's like, dude, put them out there, get in the field, go train alongside everybody else. That's the only way you're going to earn your spot. Because if you don't, everyone's going to look at them like, I am kind of
Yeah.
like, hey, what were they there for? They didn't
Strictly
help.
from a cost perspective, not that females can't do what males can do. That's an ignorant argument, anyways. But strictly from a cost perspective, at least the Marine Corps could go all male, and it would be a huge cost savings.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to talk cost, things like that, you went all male, you'd be, same thing with the Navy, same thing with the Army. You could go all male and it'd be a huge cost savings.
Yeah.
Medical issues, things like that. There's a bunch of things that females come with that are part of nature.
Yeah.
Even the flak jacket sizes. You have to have super small sizes.
They have different uniforms. They have different boots.
Yeah, boot sizes. It costs the military a lot of money. So if you just wanted to say, I'm not emotionally involved, it's not about women can't do what men can do, or men can't do what women can do, or equality and all the other nonsense, from a cost perspective, it'd be, I think for the Marine Corps, it was a 12% reduction in personnel, but it was a larger than that cost reduction. And it had to do with like training. Like, hey, you train somebody, you spend $150,000 training them to be a radio operator. And then on their second tour, they get married and decide to go be a mother. Good on you.
Yeah.
But now we've lost that experience, that money. So.
And it's one of those things, like when you're on light duty because you're pregnant, your line number can't be replaced. You're still part of that unit.
Right.
So the thing, my whole thing with the females in the military and females in combat arms and stuff like that is that females are never going to get a fair shake, and they're never going to feel like it's equal playing field until PFT standards are equalized amongst the males and females, because males are always going to look at females and go, you only had to do 7 pull-ups and I had to do 22. You only had to do this fast of a run and I had to, and it's always because we set those separate standards and theirs is lower, they're always going to be looked at like they can only achieve that lower standard.
Well,
that's my opinion.
And therein lies the problem. If you make it equal across the board, and then less females qualify for,
They're not going to promote because of the pros and cons and things like that.
Right, but then we run into the problem of people saying, "Oh, you didn't promote enough females.
Yeah.
It's not fair." Well, no, the standards are equal, and they didn't meet those standards, and so they didn't get promoted.
The military should be treated differently than the average
It's not
civilian
a social
job.
experiment, man.
If it's not designed to make you more lethal, then it should just be scrapped.
Sure,
It's just one of those things.
But we've turned our military into a social experiment. It has to be fair and equal. It doesn't. As a matter of, like you said, in combat arms, there's more white guys in the grunts than minorities. Mostly white and Hispanic, and then a lower group of African Americans, right?
And
but-
even less Asians.
Yeah.
There's like way less Asians in the military.
But Asians are smart. They go to school.
One of my best friends in my first MOS school was a kid from China. He was like straight, like from China, like spoke Mandarin. He was born in China. They wouldn't give him the extra money for the foreign language pay because the person that interviewed him, the like major or whatever, the officer, sat down and spoke with him and said that he spoke the wrong dialect, so they weren't paying him for it.
Well,
or they told him
that sucks.
they told him he didn't know the language. And he's like, dude, I was born in China.
I'm from there.
I'm from
but
China.
The problem is you have to be using it. You don't just get paid I speak Spanish. Oh, good. You get paid. No, you have to be using it.
Really? I
get
thought if some of the languages you get paid all the time.
No, you got to be using it.
Oh.
That would be ridiculous. You know, that would be like.
Well, it depends on the language.
You have cool hair. You get to be extra money. That's the equate of not using. You know.
Yeah.
You have to be using it.
I knew a kid who spoke Spanish, and he was like, I'm going to go take the language aptitude test just so that it's on the record, you
Yeah.
know? Because most dudes are like, yeah, everyone speaks Spanish. Why would I go do it? They were on a ship. They were on ship, and they went to South America, and they were like, they pulled the records and was like, oh, you're an official interpreter. Come with us. You're going to go with the CO and stuff and be a linguist while we're in South America. Oh, and you get all this extra pay, too. Like he was still with his
That's
unit,
cool.
and he got to be
Yeah.
a linguist instead of doing whatever the regular stuff he was doing. So he got paid because he actually went and took the test, and it was like on the record that he was an official Spanish speaker, which I guess most people don't go and take because it's like, oh, everyone speaks it. Why would I,
Yeah.
go do that?
Yeah.
But you take you get it on the record.
Yeah, but
I had a buddy of mine. One of my corpsmen was from the Philippines, and when we were in the Philippines, I was, hey, translate for me, Tagalog, and so we're talking to people, and I was like, Doc, what'd he say? He goes, oh, he said, yeah, just go up the road here and turn left at the banana fields or whatever, at the papaya. And I'm like, the dude talked for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's all he said.
He was like, friggin' Americans, come to my country. I just
Yeah.
want you guys out of here.
But Doc
Spend
was
your
like-
money.
Yeah, but he told me, he goes, yeah, well, Tagalog's combination of the native language, Spanish, and then there's a bunch of gibberish words in there.
yeah,
And I'm like, what do you mean? He says, well, like in English, we say,
yeah, slang.
that means nothing to the conversation. It doesn't add it doesn't add to the conversation. He goes, there's a lot of that in the thing. Or he was saying, hey, you know what? Screw you guys. Stop
Yeah.
making tracks in my field.
Yeah. That's fine.
But he was super cool, man.
Good times, man. You meet all kinds of people in.
Yeah, I love it. And if we were wise enough to expose ourselves, like when you go to Hong Kong,
Mm-hmm.
don't go to the bars. Go to the bars later.
Well, yeah, you got to go to the bar. Lai Kwai Fong, man. Got to
But
hit up.
first, go to all the cultural centers, and learn stuff. Same thing in Japan. We went to Yokosuka.
Yeah.
That was a blast.
I'm gonna make it to Japan at some point. I've never been.
Yeah, I noticed you have a lot of the Riot Society T-shirts.
Yeah, I like their shirts and stuff.
Yeah, I do too, man. I just look terrible in a T-shirt.
Yeah, you're a Hawaiian shirt kind of guy.
Yeah, it's
like
got a
it.
pocket.
There you go.
For the glasses.
Yeah, it's for the gay boy smoke vape device. Hey, it got me off of cigarettes.
Hey,
I gotta-
man, hey, do it, whatever.
Hey,
It
yeah,
works.
you be you, man.
It's healthier.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah,
you
thank
know,
you. It was a lot of fun.
Tracy's always here. He's a regular.
Just
Everybody
nice
knows
catching
him.
up.
We'll have to have you come on again sometime. Maybe some people come up with some questions. I don't know, SERE or whatever. And if you talk to any of those old POW dudes and any
Yeah,
of them
I'll
are
reach
interested
out.
in coming on the show, man, that'd be.
See if there's any in California.
I'm sure
Yeah.
if not, I can do them over Skype too. I do a lot of my interviews over Skype since the whole COVID-19. I'm slowly doing more interviews in person. This is like the third or fourth that I've done here. And that's why I'm getting used to this camera setup and having the camera over there and, all the lighting and stuff. I'm trying to figure it all out, but
Nice.
it's coming together. Go ahead.
So could you do an interview with somebody, say, in a different state through their computer, just voice?
I could, but I don't want to. I've gone away from doing just voice because there's a lot of people that want to watch the YouTube videos or watch
Okay.
an actual video. Because I think maybe it's me and you, or me and you were talking about earlier, how you get more context out of it. Because actually
yeah.
seeing two people talk where like we're laughing and talking, like
Right.
my facial expressions give out, away some of this, how I'm thinking about something or whatever. But so no, I probably won't ever do any more. I won't say ever, but more than likely I probably won't do any more just audio interviews just because I'm trying to keep it up on the YouTube channel and stuff
And
like
you
that.
could verbally just listen to it. That's what I do. I just listen to them.
Yeah. Some people listen to them. Some people, I have more people listen to them from like Apple Podcasts or Spotify than people watch on YouTube. I mean, the YouTube channel has only been up the channel's been there for a while. I saved the name because I was like, well, I've already got my name. I don't have any videos to put up, and I want to go ahead and save the name. So I've had the channel for probably a year, but actual content, 3 months, maybe 3 months, and 4 months, and I've got like just over 170 subscribers right now. So there's not a lot on the YouTube channel, Whereas everything else I get, right now I'm sitting between 3,000 and 4,000 downloads a month.
Nice.
And
So-
most of that comes from the other platforms. But YouTube is growing,
Right.
and I know more and more people are going to use YouTube because you can turn it on the TV. Like my TV has YouTube on it, so I can turn on YouTube and work while I'm listening to two people talk.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's how I learn stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learn doc stuff all the time. And, hey, what does this mean? You can just listen while you're doing something productive.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I said, though, I
anything.
appreciate you coming on, man. You've had an interesting career up to now. It's still going. You're still in.
Just been blessed, yeah.
So
yeah.
how much time? How long have you been in?
It'll
Not
be
to drag it
9
out.
years in
Very good.
August.
Okay.
9 years in August. And what's your rank now? Are you at HM2?
Still second class, yeah.
Okay. Cool, man. Well, hey, everyone out there. Do you have a social media, or either one of you guys want to put your social media out there, or any kind of organizations you want to promote?
I wouldn't mind promoting a couple organizations,
Go ahead.
actually.
Go ahead.
So I'll play for the charity hockey teams I played for. They're all veterans. So there's 3 of them that I've been associated with. One of them shirt I'm wearing now is Patriots Hockey. Follow them on Facebook, whatever. Patriots Hockey is a charity team here out of San Diego. I played with them for the entire time I was in ANGLICO. They go and play events for charity veterans associations, San Diego law enforcement, firefighter teams. Another one's Veterans Hockey United. It's the same owner of that team. He was a corpsman.
Mm-hmm.
He moved elsewhere, started another team to do some good work. Same thing. So that's Patriots Hockey, Veterans Hockey United, and the team I just left from is a Skate for 22 program. They have 3 teams. It's an organization that has 3 teams out of Maine, Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, and they play games. Just like the name says, Skate for 22. They're trying to raise awareness and do fundraisers to help prevent veteran suicide. Because fortunately, we have had team members that played on that team that can no longer suit up. They lost battles to their demons, so they're going to that cause. And so it's a great organizations. They all have a Facebook page. And then the last one is talked about it. Maine Military Museum. I know the guy personally. He's donation only, so a lot of things are out of pocket. And then biggest thing is he's always looking for artifacts. If you have like something of your great grandfather's, like, hey, nobody wants it, he'll happily give you a tax write off, things like that, because he's donation only. He actually got a flag from one of the main units during the Civil War that was donated because it was in an attic and it was just the moths were eating it away, and they donated that and some muskets, and he gave I think he still does tax write-offs for the value.
Right.
It's just to throw you a bone, but he can't pay because he's out of pocket.
Yeah. No, that's cool though.
They have a Facebook. They have a thing, a website, but they also do one of the big fundraisers is if you ever want to honor one of your members of your family, they have memorial placards, and that's his biggest fundraiser for funds. Is you can honor your great grandfather who fought in World War II, and it'll always be on the wall right there as you walk into the museum. And so it's great. And being a collector myself, I find a lot of things at the dump, and it's crazy where Lee Hummelstead will happily receive those artifacts, pay for shipping, give you a tax write-off, and instead of throw your family's named Purple Heart, which named means they didn't come home, in the trash can from World War II. So
yeah, that's
he'll
crazy.
take these artifacts. You just got to send them to Maine.
And people don't know when they're cleaning out the garage.
They don't know.
They
They
don't
just they see like, oh, my great grandfather's uniforms. No one wants them, so they send them to Goodwill. And so it's just things like that. It's like, hey, we talked about honoring people that went before us, like when we talked about the Vietnam vets, and hey, if you want to honor them, I've donated some of my personal things to the collection to Lee Hummelstead because he didn't have it and he wanted it, so I collect. I have a war room.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But I traded to him because I wanted him to have it, put it on display, and hey,
Now it's there forever, man. Now
it's there forever, and little kids that do school field trips will like, hey, that's really cool, and he'll tell you the story about every artifact in that museum.
And so you can put those links. You put those links in the.
Yeah, if you send me the links, I'll throw them on the show notes.
I'll happily do that because he's always looking for new artifacts because his museum's a doozy.
Cool, man. Well, check out my website, jkramergraphics.com. My Instagram is at jkramergraphics or at former action guys, either one. And then my Twitter is the number 4 MER action guys. So, yeah, thanks, and have a good day.
Peace out.